Right, we are recording, so it's available later on the council's YouTube. If anyone wants to look back and see what the meeting's happening. I remind everybody, switch off your mobile phones or put them to silent mode. If you need to do an urgent phone call, just pop out and then come back again when you're finished. And we will now go to the Sethering and apologies, please, Stuart.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members, and for the Sethering, if you could confirm your presence at the meeting today when I call your name. So, Councillor Peter Maben.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sally Cogley.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Canning.
Present, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor John McFadgen. Councillor McFadgen. Okay. Councillor David Richardson.
Present, Stuart.
Thank you. Councillor Jane Sangster.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jim Todd.
Yes, Stuart.
Thank you. Councillor Kevin McGregor.
Yes, Stuart, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor William Lennox.
Honor, Stuart, I'm here.
Okay. Councillor June Kyle.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Jennifer Hogg.
I'm here, thank you.
And just another quick call for Councillor John McFadgen. No. Okay. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Stuart. We have some visitors in this morning, which is always nice. We've got Scott Robertson, who's the head teacher at Grange Academy. As in respect to item 3 in the agenda, we've got Gillian Campbell, who's the head teacher at Hereford Primary School. Good to see you, Gillian. We've got Kirsty Doncaster, head teacher at Lonehead. And another head teacher is from Mauchline, it's Robin Davison. Nice to see you, Robin. She's in a support role with the other head teachers. And we have Lily Taylor, who is a fourth-year pupil at Grange Academy, who's undertaking work experience placement with Governance Services. Good morning, Lily. Nice to see you. And we've got Emily Somerville, who's a fifth-year pupil at Grange Academy. And again, this is a work experience placement within Governance Services. Nice to see you. Thank you, Emily. Right, we'll move on to the next item in the agenda. I'll go to David Mitchell, who will advise on declarations of interest.
Not aware of any or anticipating any in particular. It would be down to any personal circumstances, personal interests. There's obviously 3 schools there. If any members of any relatives employed there, for instance, you might want to declare that, but I'm not aware of that. Everything else should probably be okay in terms of the actual content of the reports and the decisions to be made. So unless members know differently, I wouldn't be expecting any, but as always, it falls on members to be satisfied that they've no interest to declare.
Thank you, David. Elected members, have we any declarations of interest? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the previous minutes. The meeting held on the 4th of September and also the special meeting, which was held on the 25th of September. And we need to approve these as a correct record and then take matters arising. We propose on seconder for correct minute.
Yes, Chair.
Can I propose on seconder for the meeting 4th of September? Thank you, Jennifer. Councillor Hogg.
Happy to second, Chair.
And thank you, Councillor Sangster. I'm trying to remember myself that we don't use first names. We've got to use councillor and surname, which is the correct etiquette. So I might have to catch myself once or twice and make sure I'm doing that. The other meeting was a special meeting on 25th of September. Someone who was at that, approve and second, please. That's correct. Take it as read and is that correct minute? Thank you, elected members. Any matters arising from these minutes, from these previous meetings? No. Right, thank you. We'll move on. At this stage, to remind officers who will be presenting reports that these have been issued well in advance of today's meetings. Members have had the opportunity to read reports beforehand. Therefore, officers should keep presentations brief and focused on the main points. And that's new on my briefing sheet that I'm supposed to read out. Thank you. We'll go to item 3 in the agenda, which is Grange Academy Her Majesty's Inspection Report. We go to Graham McGinn, who is Assistant Director of Education, Performance and Improvement. Thank you, Graham.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks also to Scott Robertson for joining us for this item, but also to Emily, who would have been in the school at the time of the inspection. So welcome, Emily. So the purpose of the report is to present the findings of an HMIE inspection visit at Grange Academy. It's a detailed report. I won't go through every single section to highlight some sections. So the recommendations are detailed in paragraph 2. Paragraphs 3 to 12 detail the aims of the inspection and the inspection process. I'd like to highlight, members, paragraphs 7 and 8, and that is that the Grange inspection was a full inspection model which covered 4 quality indicators: 1.3, 2.3, 3.2 and 3.1. Paragraphs 13 to 15 detail the purpose of East Ayrshire Secondary School quality improvement visits, and paragraphs 16 to 18 provide details of the findings of a day quality improvement visit that took place at Grange Academy in September 2024. Paragraphs 19 to 22 provide details of the findings of the HMIE inspection, and I would like to highlight some of the findings, members. If I can take you to paragraph 20, that shows the evaluations for each quality indicator. As you can see in paragraph 20, 1.3 was very good, 2.3 was good, 3.1 was good, 3.2 was good. Paragraph 21 details the strengths identified by inspectors, and I would like to highlight some of those strengths, including the leadership of the head teacher was identified as being instrumental in maintaining a focus on improving young people's wellbeing and attainment. He's held in high regard by all members of the school community who value his careful, sensitive management of the pace and direction of change. I would also like to highlight that the inspectors identified positive, mutually respectful relationships between staff and young people that are built upon shared values. Also, that staff approaches to improving and promoting the well-being of young people are leading to improvements in their mental, emotional, social and physical well-being. And finally, in that paragraph, the wide range of achievement and attainment activities that are developing young people's skills for learning, life and work. Members, I'd like to draw your attention to paragraph 22, and that highlighted some areas where continued improvement could be made. It's important to highlight continued because they recognised that there was already work going on in these areas, so they're not new to the school. So continued area for improvement where the school should continue to work together to agree a shared understanding of standards and expectations in relation to broad general education, and there's definitely work ongoing in the school in that respect. To continue to develop approaches to equality across the school, particularly building on existing work to improve attendance of young people. And again, that is work that's ongoing. And continue to focus on raising attainment and national qualifications, particularly at National 5 and higher levels. And again, there's definitely work ongoing in the school in that respect. Paragraphs 23 to 25 detailed the response to the inspection, including that HMIE inspectors reported that they are confident that the school has capacity to continue to improve and will make no further visits in connection with this inspection. The school will continue to develop the areas for improvement via ongoing school improvement activity, and that as part of our ongoing commitment to improvement within the education service, head teachers are being signposted to the head teacher of Grange Academy to support them as they are notified of inspection. And in fact, yesterday we had a head of establishment meeting where the focus was entirely on head teachers sharing highly effective practice. So that's the end of the report. Hand back to the Chair.
Thank you, Graham. Members, what I'm going to do, we've got 3 school inspection reports this morning. I don't plan to go through the same round of questions and back to the schools 3 times, so I'm going to take all 3 school inspection reports together, and then we'll go to the head teachers, so they'll form like a wee panel, like question time, and then we can do questions to the panel with 4 head teachers there, actually. On the recommendations for the report, it's page 11 on your papers. And it's paragraph 2 is not the publication of the inspection report, not the strengths and areas for improvement, congratulate the children, young people and staff for their achievements, not the next steps, and otherwise not the contents of the report. So we're happy to do that, elected members. Yes, and well done to Grange Academy, to the head teacher, all the staff, And of course, the pupils, the parents, everyone there, the janitors, the catering staff, everyone at Grange Academy, well done in this inspection report. We'll move on to the next one, which is Hurlford Primary School. If I go back to Graham, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. And similar to previous report, the purpose of the report is detailed in paragraph 1. It provides a summary of findings from the inspection that took place at Hurlford Primary School and Early Childhood Centre. The recommendations are detailed in paragraph 2. Similar to previous report, paragraphs 3 to 20 detail the aims of inspection and the inspection process. I would like to, members, highlight paragraphs 7 and 8. The Hurlford inspection was a full model inspection which covered 4 quality indicators, 1.3, 2.3, 3.2 and 3.1 in both the school and the early childhood centre. So effectively there were 8 quality indicators evaluated. HMIE inspectors were also joined by colleagues from the Care Inspectorate during the inspection. This was a very thorough inspection process, as I'm sure Gillian would be able to tell us. Paragraphs 21 to 27 detail the purpose of East Ayrshire Early Childhood Centre and Primary School quality improvement visits, and paragraphs 28 to 30 provide details of the findings of a 2-day quality improvement visit that took place at Hurlford Primary School in September 2023. Paragraphs 31 to 35 provide details of the findings from the HMIE inspection, and I'd like to highlight some of the findings. So paragraphs 32 and 33 highlight the evaluations for each quality indicator. So looking at the primary school evaluations, 1.3 was evaluated as good, 2.3 good, 3.1 very good, and 3.2 good. In the early childhood centre, all quality indicators were evaluated as good. Paragraph 34 details the strengths identified by inspectors, and again I'd like to highlight just a few. In paragraph 34, so the staff promote a nurturing and inclusive atmosphere. Staff in the school and ECC support children's wellbeing very well. Children in the school and ECC benefit from an extensive range of experiences in science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and that's developing their creativity, problem solving and critical thinking skills linked to real life experiences. And staff and partners provide children with opportunities to experience success and develop a wide range of skills through their achievements. Similar to the previous report, inspectors identified areas where continued improvement could be made, and just to highlight a few of those, continue to develop high quality approaches to learning and teaching. It's always their aspiration. Senior leaders should continue to improve the approaches used to measure the impact of strategies and interventions to raise children's attainment. In paragraph 36 to 38, it provides the details of the response to the inspection. And again, similar to the previous one, HMIE inspectors reported that they're confident that the school has capacity to continue to improve and will make no further visits in relation to this inspection. The school will continue to build on the strengths and address areas for continued improvement via ongoing school improvement activity. And as I previously mentioned, there was a full focus yesterday on head teachers sharing effective practice. So that's the end of the report, and I'll hand back to the Chair.
Thank you very much, Graham. I'd like to members, if you go to page 17 on your papers, you'll see paragraph 2, recommendations for GNS. Note the publication of the inspection report for Hurlford Primary School. Note the strengths and areas for improvement. Congratulate the children, young people and the staff and their achievement. Note the next steps and otherwise note the contents of the report. We're happy to do that, elected members. Thank you very much. And of course, Hurlford Primary School, you'll take our best wishes back there. Congratulations to the head teacher, all her staff and the pupils, the parents, everyone at Hurlford Primary. Well done. And we'll move on, Graham. We'll go back to Graham for the next one, which is the Lonehead Primary School. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Final inspection report. So this report details the findings from an HMIE follow-up inspection at Lonehead Primary School. Members might recall that the school was initially inspected back in April 2024. The recommendations are detailed in paragraph 2. Paragraphs 3 to 11 detail the aims of inspection and the inspection process. Paragraphs 12 and 13 provide details of ongoing engagement with the school by the East Ayrshire Quality Improvement Team. Paragraphs 14 to 19 detail the process for follow-up inspections. This is slightly different from the previous 2 inspection reports. Paragraph 16 details the areas identified in the initial inspection that required improvement, and these areas were the focus for the follow-up inspection. Paragraph 18 details that in follow-up inspections, gradings are not provided for quality indicators, and instead a statement of progress is provided. So you won't see, members, a good or a very good gradings like that. Instead, there's a statement provided. Paragraph 19 details the possible outcomes from a follow-up inspection. Those can be a return visit by HMIE, a handover to the local authority to report on progress, or to completely disengage from the school. Paragraph 20 to 25 detail the findings from the follow-up inspection, and I would like to highlight some of the areas from the table in paragraph 22. In paragraph 22, what you'll see is a table that shows each of the areas for improvement that were identified in the initial inspection. And what you'll see on the right-hand side of that table is the progress comment that inspectors made. And just to highlight those progress comments, so the area for improvement and the first box was to increase opportunities for leadership and improvement across the school. And inspectors reported that senior leaders and staff have made positive progress in this area for improvement. The next box down, teachers should plan and deliver more engaging and appropriately challenging tasks and activities which meet the needs of all learners. And inspectors report that senior leaders and staff have made strong progress in this area for improvement. Senior leaders and staff should ensure that children who require additional support for learning are fully included and access their full entitlement to education. And again, inspectors identified that senior leaders and staff have made significant progress in this area for improvement. And the final box, senior leaders and staff should improve the consistency of assessments to ensure the reliability of teacher judgments about children's progress. And inspectors report that senior leaders and staff have made effective progress in this area for improvement. So members, in paragraph 24, highlights that inspectors have reported positive progress in all 4 areas identified for improvement in the original inspection. And as a result, inspectors are confident that the school has the capacity to continue to improve and will make no further visits in connection with the initial inspection. Members, I hope you agree this is a very positive outcome of the follow-up inspection and demonstrates significant progress since the initial inspection. And I would like to highlight, members, the highly effective leadership of Kirsty, the head teacher, in leading the school through this follow-up inspection process. So that takes us to the end of the report. Happy to hand back to the chair.
Thank you very much, Graham. I'll let the members, if we go to page 25 on your papers, again, the recommendations in paragraph 2. It's note the publication of the inspection report for Lawnhead Primary School, note the strengths and areas for improvement, congratulate young people and staff on their achievements, note the next steps, and otherwise note the contents of the report. Happy to do that. I'll let it to members. Very good, thank you. Now is the tricky bit, because this is the first time I've had 3 school inspection reports coming into this committee on the same day. It's never happened before. So I'll let the members, if you have any questions or comments, please tell us the page you're looking at, the paragraph where your questions or comment is coming from. If you want to leave it open to all 4 of our head teachers there, they can jump in and ask it. If they think they're relevant to that part, if you'd like to direct your question to one particular school, your head teachers are Scott Robertson at Grange, Gillian Campbell at Hereford, Kirsty Doncaster at Lonehead, if you want to select one of them for a question or comment. Okay, and I'll now put it open to the room. Any questions or comments? I'll let the members. Councillor Sangster.
Thank you, Chair. I've actually got several questions, so I'm not really sure what will I ask each one individually, or will I ask them all at once and then they can answer after I've both each question and let them answer and then right, okay. So obviously the first question's round about the Grange Academy inspection report. I have to say, as an elected member, Grange Academy is within my ward, and I was really delighted to see this report. I have to say, on the very rare occasions that I have to contact the head teacher, he engages with me really well and responds very quickly. So I really do appreciate that, Scott. Thank you. Just on page 15, paragraph 22, senior leaders should continue to develop approaches to equality across the school. building an existing work. I know that within secondary schools you have a wide range of pupils from varying areas. You know, you've probably got pupils who are from areas of deprivation, you've got pupils from affluent areas. So if you could just maybe give us an idea of how you actually do that kind of equality across the board with the wide range of pupils that you have attend your school. And also, a lot of people in here know my passion is around additional support needs, and just a wee bit about maybe how you support the pupils that you have within your school with additional support needs, and how many of those pupils there are, and what you do to support them. Thanks.
Thank you. Scott, you okay?
Thanks, Councillor Sangster, and thank you for your support as an elected member within the Grange Education Group. The question's quite vast, and I'm trying to think how to be as succinct as possible with this. So, in terms of equality, the main focus was actually attendance, because nationally there's a drop in attendance post-COVID. So we're doing quite a significant amount of work in relation to attendance within the school. Now, there's various things, various aspects that can go into that. And the first thing, and it's noted in the report, is to do with culture and ethos within the school, because we want to try and make sure if the school is as equitable, happy, healthy and safe as possible, then we're making a nurtured environment within the school, which should hopefully allow pupils to see their place in the school and improve attendance. It goes into other aspects of the school in terms of leadership opportunities for all pupils, irrespective of what SIMD profile they are, extracurricular activities. But one of the big areas of focus we've had recently is on the curriculum. We're doing a lot of work within the curriculum linked to Skills Development Scotland labour market information and the Ayrshire growth deal, to make sure that the qualifications that we've got within the school directly articulate with the local employment opportunities. For example, circular economy within the kind of Cumnock and East Ayrshire area, engineering manufacturing corridor. So we're doing a huge amount of work to make sure that the school is attractive and as possible, so that pupils can see their place in that. So that's probably the first thing. The second thing in terms of equity and equality would probably be to do with strategic use of our resources in terms of PEF. So we get our Pupil Equity Fund every year, and we do quite a thorough analysis to see what is our self-evaluation telling us in terms of the shortfall in between pupils who maybe reside in quintile 1 and quintile 10. So we put a huge amount of effort into attendance, which I've already said. But if I branch into the ASN bracket, we have, over the last 3.5 years, developed what I think is an excellent inclusion redesign programme within the school. So we work probably within our primaries from about primary 6, primary 7 onwards, to identify any pupils who are maybe struggling at school for whatever reason, have a significantly enhanced transition profile, so that the transition is as smooth and flat as possible. And when they come to Grange Academy, they feel as if they've actually been there for a year or two. All sorts of things within that: opportunities for health and well-being, opportunities for pupils to participate in outdoor learning activities, opportunities for pupils to attend the classes they like the best, but then maybe put more of those classes in front of them so that they can get the best possible education. Smaller classes, some pupils can't cope with classes of 33 periods a week of 30 pupils, so maybe smaller classes in our pupil support base or inclusion redesign programme, to make sure that we're maybe in classes of 5, 6 and 7 at times. We can't do that wholesale. Don't have the resources to do that, but quite a significant amount of strategies going in from a strategic, operational and monetary perspective, to try and make sure that we're improving equity and equality across the board.
Thank you very much, Scott.
Yeah, thank you for that succinct response. That's amazing. Thank you. My next question is obviously around Hurlford Primary School and Early Childhood Centre. On page 23, just above paragraph 36, it says about the senior leaders supporting further purposeful play spaces that motivate, inspire and encourage children to develop their creativity and curiosity. I'm just wondering if we could maybe kind of drill down on that a wee bit and get a wee bit more information, because I think that sounds really, really interesting. And again, my question around ESN and what you do to support any children within Hurlford Primary School and Early Childhood Centre that have additional support needs, and just give us a wee bit more information about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Over the last few years, we have been developing our school environment to develop our outdoor play areas, as well as obviously our early childhood areas. And I think that particular comment was to do with early childhood centre play, but across the school we are looking at further developing the aspects of play and the environment, which we've done. I think one of the areas of the inspection report that they highlighted was also about the impact of that in pupil leadership skills and leading play within the primary older children, leading play with primary younger children, as well as with our early childhood centre children as well. And an aspect of that was also our STEM developments. We have, over the last few years, focused on STEM and developing the curiosity and the exploration and creativity for our children within the primary and also within our early childhood centre. And that has also involved transitions between our early childhood centre and our primary one children doing purposeful play activities together, focusing on STEM activities in particular. So there are sort of different aspects in which we take forward play within our school, within the primary and within the early children's centre. In terms of ESN, I'm a deputy, meet with our staff on a 5-weekly basis, talking about all of our pupils, and we really seek to get it right for all the children within the school. We obviously have a particular focus also with our ESN children. So we support the needs in a range of different ways through our universal services in upskilling our staff. Over the last few years, we've worked hard on our neurosequential understanding and our universal offer, I suppose, within the classrooms, upskilling staff through a range of supports and in line with the educational psychologist. So that's really been very beneficial. But we also have obviously children who require maybe more bespoke interventions, and we do that in a range of ways through our classroom assistance support, through our EAST support, through our Boost support as well. So we boost children where we see there maybe are gaps. So we look at that on a kind of 5-weekly basis with our staff, so hopefully that we're making sure that we are putting interventions in place quickly and timely for the period of time that the children require support. And we're very fortunate within Hurlford to have a very positive relationship with our parents, very supportive parent body, and we involve them in that process as well. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm allowed one more.
Another one, right, okay.
Just around obviously Loanhead, and well done to the head teacher there. I know there's been a lot of work has been put into that. On page 29, paragraph 23, I would love to hear about your pupil council and how they work alongside you. I can imagine that would be quite interesting. I can imagine they'll come up with some ideas, and you maybe sometimes have to kind of maybe push them down a wee bit, and and that sort of thing. And again, my question around ESN, what you do to support ESN pupils. But no, I would love to hear about your pupil council and what you've done about that.
Hi. So our pupil council was established last year. There's been a couple of meetings. It was part of our wider scope to increase opportunities for our children as leaders at school, and that was highlighted in the report. So our pupil council forms a small part of our pupil leadership across the school. Last year we established every child from primary 1 to primary 7 was part of a leadership group, and the pupil council sat actually aside from that. So I think some of the highlights around that, we had a few different pupil leadership group last year. We had an inclusion and equality group, which was highlighted by the inspection, and the children, if I maybe focus on that, just to give you an example how that works. So each member of staff had responsibility for, I wouldn't say leading it, for facilitating it, because we really want to develop the children as leaders. And the children met initially and sort of did an audit of where we were as a school and what they felt as children in the school we needed to improve on, what was good, what was needing to be improved. And that kind of further development is very child-led. We had lots of different things happening. We had some participatory budgeting from our PEF money allocated to our pupil leadership groups, and the children had the opportunity to develop their literacy and numeracy skills as they looked through catalogues and discussed pricing. So it was very much a kind of holistic approach to the leadership within the school for the children. That particular group then made a video, and it was a bit like Dragon's Den, and they pitched to me, we would like the X, Y and Z for the playground or whatever. And that particular group then developed inclusive boxes for each classroom with the money from the PEF. So it's been really, really successful last year, and that kind of feeds in as well to sort of our ESN across the school too. Very similar to what Gillian said. We had significant work to do around ESN at Loanhead, and I'm pleased to say that now everything is in place, all our statutory needs are met, all the children have plans that need plans, ILPs, etc. There are regular meetings with parents, and now teachers are fully involved. We work with a range of agencies as well. We've established really strong partnerships with a wide range of agencies as well to support our children. We have classroom assistants in school that have targeted support groups, and also work with individuals. So it's very much needs-led at the school. We have very strong links with partners, as I've mentioned, and parents, and there's regular meetings now for parents for children that require. And also on top of that, if a need comes up, we will meet parents and address things as and when. Particularly at Loanhead as well, just to sort of as part of that, we've had a real strong focus on developing our relationships and anti-bullying policy too. And our children have had a really important part in developing the child-friendly anti-bullying policy as well. And we've got a focus very much, like Gillian said, too, in our inclusive environments this year, which is the sort of starting point for children with ESN and any other need that they may have. What does their environment look like, and is that conducive to children learning in the best possible way in the school? Thanks.
No, thank you, Chair, and thank you for indulging me with numerous questions there, and thank you all for answering. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster, and thank you the head teachers for those answers. Councillor Kyle, would you want in?
Congratulations to all three schools, the staff and the pupils. And I'm really pleased to see you're doing well in attendance, because that really worries me, the amount of kids that just don't go to school. What I was wanting to ask, do you have strong parent councils or parent teachers association in all schools? Do you do a lot of work with them?
I'm happy to take that when I can share my colleagues with some of the things. At Loanhead, we have our Friends of Loanhead. When I started at Loanhead, up and coming nearly 2 years ago now, there was quite a lot of change at the school. Different children leave, which means parents leave as well. So our newly established group, there's some members that were there previously, new members, are a very small group, but a very, very active and committed group. For instance, they help us with a range of fundraising activities across the school. But more important than that, they're also involved in school improvement and consultations and working with us about what we need to do to make our school better. And part of that this year is they've committed to supporting us with digital. So a lot of their fundraising is then feeding into our improving our digital literacy across the school. So we have a really active group. We meet regularly. A lot of the councillors come along to that too. And that's been very, very important in terms of the development we've done over the past year and getting to where we're at with our inspection. They're fundamental. We couldn't do it without them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kyle, and thank you again. I'm thinking myself, parent councils, Christmas is coming. You're going to have pantomimes and Christmas shows, school shows and Christmas fairs and all sorts of things coming up. Can I quickly go for all three schools how busy you are and the work, how the parent councils are also involved in that?
Just to echo Kirsty's words, the parent council, certainly at Grange Academy in the last 3 years, has been instrumental in school improvement. There is a kind of wrong impression amongst some parent bodies nationally that Parent Council are a fundraising committee, and it's absolutely not the case. Yes, it happens, and I will go into that, Councillor Mabin, but they're also the strategic arm of the school, and they provide, certainly Grange Academy, significant support, but also challenge to make sure that the school is improving and progressing in the best possible manner. Yes, we have a Christmas concert coming up in December. Councillor Mabin, I can't remember the exact date it's coming up, but that's certainly happening. And the actual Parent Council are organising our Christmas fair, which is Saturday the 22nd of November, 10 o'clock to 1 at Grange Academy. Parents' tickets are available on Parent Pay. And it's a fantastic community event and raises a significant amount of money for the school, which then the Parent Council reinvest to improve outcomes for our young people. So a fantastic support to the school. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think at Hurlford Primary, we've had a very consistently supportive parent body. The Parent Council represent the parent body very well, so they come with anything that's coming from a wider group. We meet on a monthly basis, and they are very, very supportive of the work of the school and you know, want the best for the children and to work alongside us in relation to that. We also have a Christmas fair, which we organise in partnership with the Parent Council. And that's usually the Monday before. I don't actually know the date off the top. I think it's the 16th of December. So there's lots of events that they run over the time, and I'm always so impressed at the how much time people give up to support the work of the school and the parents. So yeah, very supportive. Thank you.
Ours is very similar. In fact, we have a Halloween disco next week that the Parent Council have organised, and that's been something that's been re-established over the last sort of couple of years. We have a Christmas fair, which again is organised by them, but we contribute. The children make crafts and they sell, etc. But there's some other things that our Parent Council also do, and they've got a real role in making sure that no child misses out on anything within the school. So, for example, they've donated £100 for each class towards school trips. So that means that any child that's not able to pay, there's that contribution there. No child's left behind. They're also contributing towards swimming lessons this year too, the Halloween parties, pantomime, helping us out with PVG costs and things like that. So they are a real big help to us.
Thank you very much. And just before we wrap it up, man, we'll let all our head teachers go back to their schools and go on with their real jobs. Just if there's any other contributions, elected members, Councillor Cannon.
Just a very quick one. Thanks for the report and thanks for coming today. Just a very quick one. Did I pick you up right in saying that the council, the kids council that you run, you have participatory budget and you actually give them a small amount of money to spend? Because I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I don't know whether we do it across the schools, but I think that's maybe something we could roll out across all schools, because, and I think as a council we could probably learn from that as well. But I think that's brilliant. Yeah. Thanks.
I was just going
Thank
to
you, Councillor Cannon.
Sorry, I was just going to add in just what you were mentioning there. We do sort of weekly thinking sessions where the children work together in mixed stage groups where they come up with ideas for funding. So the same kind of thing as you're mentioning there in relation to, for example, things for the playground or things for the classroom, as Kirsty was mentioning. So that's something that's embedded, I'm sure, in quite a lot of the schools. Yeah, very key.
Okay, Linda, and then Councillor Cogley.
Thanks, Chair. And Councillor Canning, your comment in regards to participatory budgeting is incredibly welcomed. So the actual nature of pupil equity funding itself means that the young people have to be consulted in that particular space. Now, granted, the amount of PEF varies from school to school depending on the profile of the young people in attendance, but that mainstreaming of PB has absolutely taken place through both PEF but also in other activities. Youth Philanthropy Initiative is a great example of that in secondary, where the young people, a bit like the Provost charity, decide on their charity that they want to support, and they do that via almost a pitch to their peers. So really delighted to say that PB and also young people also attending some of the locality PB events, you know, in Irvine Valley and other places. It's really becoming something that's mainstreamed and gives the young people a really good sense of, you know, the democratic process. So something that we're really proud to see in East Ayrshire as virtually mainstreamed across the schools. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Canning.
Councillor Cogley.
Yeah, thank you very much. And really just a general comment to say for us as elected members, it's very reassuring when we see head teachers of your calibre here presenting. And thank you to all of you for being here. And I think the standards that you're talking about and that you're implementing and continuing to implement is very, very reassuring for us. So a big thank you to you all. Well done.
Couldn't agree more, and I think we'll wrap that up there unless there's anyone else. So that's quite good. That's wrapping up 3 agenda items all in the one go. So we will now let our head teachers return to their schools and continue their work for even more improvement. And the best of luck to you when you return to your schools. You take our best wishes with you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're moving on to item 6 in the agenda, which is the Education Standards and Quality Report for 24-25. And we're back to Graham McGinn, Assistant of Education Performance and Improvement. Or not.
Chair, through you, it's going to be through myself this morning, so I hate to disappoint you that it's not Graham, it's going to be me, members, but bear with me. Members, I would just advise that this report went to Cabinet on the 1st of October and clearly is with yourselves today. I'm highly conscious of the length of agenda, so clearly, members, I know you'll have had the chance to read the report in advance. So, members, in regards to the format of the report, you'll note the recommendations, which are around about noting the content of the Standards and Quality Report, clearly to add to the congratulations that I thank you for already offering my 3 head teachers in this space today, but to congratulate the children and young people and all staff in our schools and early years centres and associated services, and to note the contents of the report, members. Members, the background to the report is outlined for you in paragraphs 3 through 5. This is a yearly and a statutory report. I'd also note that this is also a statutory obligation on all schools. So we have an obligation to publish an education service standards and quality report, but actually every single school has their own standards and quality report, which is of a statutory nature. Members, the main report is detailed around about paragraphs 6 through 8. The structure of the report is outlined in paragraph 6, and the range of information and robust data that we use as evidence is detailed for you in paragraph 7. Members, to prevent any confusion as I take you through this report, I will refer you to the page numbers in the report rather than those in your packs. So I'll commence to cover this report. Members, pages 2 through 8 of the Standards and Quality Report set the scene for the report. I'm clearly very grateful to all of the contributors at the start for outlining the report, and next year glad to say that will be expanded to a young person. So I don't know, to my young people at the back, that could be you. So ultimately we're going to seek to have young people also co-host that report, and I think that ties in well, members, with our children's rights and UI and CRC focus as a council. Members, on page 9, there's an infographic on our demographic, but I would also add, members, that clearly as we progress, we'll be adding SL 33, 66, SL 99 and soon to be SL XL as part of our wider education and skills offer, clearly representing our move to Directorate of Education and Skills and not simply education. Members, pages 10 through 13 cover learning estate, and clearly most recently we've got our young people back in their natural home of St Sophia's as being the first NRFIT school in Scotland, of which I'm sure you're rightly proud, as I am. Members, pages 14 through 20 cover only some of the key highlights of the year. I clearly couldn't cover them all, so there will be some stuff missing in here, but obviously we've just had to select a few highlights. So clearly we've covered our attainment as a service, our positive destinations, the opening of our SL 66 in the south of the authority, and some other key stories from the year, but as you imagine there are far too many to cover them all. Members, moving to the formal section of reports, I'd like to direct you to section 1 on attainment and performance, which takes you from pages 21 through 28. Pages 21 details primary school attainment, which takes the form of achievement of a level data, otherwise known as ACEL, knowing the number of acronyms and synonyms that we have in education. And members will clearly know, I hope, the increases at all measures for our primary aged young people. P147 literacy combined, P147 numeracy combined, and P4 writing highlighted for you in these reports. The reports give a flavour of the achievement of young people across our primary schools, but also some concerns, members. Not everything in the garden is rosy, and in securing balance for you today. Some concerns on a slight gap increase, as you'll note, which is always the dividend between SIMD 9 and 10 minus SIMD 1 and 2. But members, given the very, very small numbers of young people we have resigning in the upper SIMDs, it's always a measure that we're always slightly nervous of using for statistically robust purposes. Members, in moving to page 22, we clearly cover the senior phase data in respect of SCQF 4, 5 and 6 levels. The achievements of the young people are from previous Leavers data. We will receive a further update on Leavers data from the Insight in February, and myself and Mr McGinn are currently on tour around East Ayrshire at this very point in time, looking at the local data from the set of exam results, which were just published on Insight in late September. Members, positive destinations are also covered in this section, and again, I'm sure you would agree, a very favourable comparison with the virtual comparison, the virtual comparator members at 95%. Members, pages 23 and 24 discuss the key issue around about attendance, and we have identified this both nationally and locally as a major concern. I would ask members to please focus on the fact that we do have a councillor conversation booked for you on the 11th of November for a 2-hour deep dive into attendance. So I would hope that any of the questions you might have on attendance we can explore in depth. We'll have some head teachers there to present to you on the day. We are seeing significant upturn in attendance of late, and we really look forward to sharing some of those stories with you on that particular day. So we're seeing some schools at this point in time, members increasing by as much as 4%, which is absolutely incredible when you consider the amount of attendance that equates to in the system. Members, pages 25 and 26 detail exclusions. We are seeing some trends in this regard that are of concern to us. And can I also highlight, members, that in exclusions you should not see a percent in the table there. It is rate per 1,000 pupils, so that there's no percentage there. We didn't have 50% of young people being excluded in 2016-17. It was a rate of 50 young people per 1,000. So I just wanted to explain that in that narrative. Members, also in those tables, it should read specialist sector, not special sector. So we are having that updated by our comms team. So I hope that explains some of those. So members, we have seen some increase in exclusion in primary from 4.6 rate per 1,000 to 4.9, secondary 46.3 to 47.5, and also some increases in the specialist sector. Members, clearly, exclusion is a sanction of last resort, but ultimately, members, with some of the increased issues that we do see around about some high-level behaviours in the school, there are times where the schools do need to use that particular sanction, as I'm sure you would understand in that regard. Members, pages 27 and 28 highlight work and narrative around about pupil equity fund and strategic equity fund as key contributors, and obviously around about some of the leadership activity that we undertake across the service. Members, in moving to section 2, and clearly you've seen 3, I hope, really good examples of school and centre improvement following the HMIE presentations this morning. I would like to mention that actually we were inspected as a central team, or thematically reviewed, in October 2024 as part of the national thematic review. We had an incredibly successful visit from HMIE to visit myself and my team here at London Road, and clearly my extended team out there working in the quality improvement teams and other teams. Clearly those reports were not subject to publication by HMIE, but I did want to pull through some of the key findings from the thematic review in the interests of transparency and being with you this morning. And that was around about the support that we provide for statutory issues such as school improvement planning and the standards and quality reports out there in the schools. The support to improve quality self-evaluation. Graham has spoken through the lens of the learning visits and how these help influence the outcomes of HMIE reports, and I can only concur with that. And also the support that we provide for the professional learning of staff out there in the field. Members, in moving to page 29, learning visits are clearly a key aspect of our detailed quality assurance processes, and I hope you can see the list of schools that the team visited, and that's just across that year, and clearly these have been absolutely critical in securing some of the improvements you've seen in front of you today. Members, page 30 details work around about school inspections, and clearly very good outcomes in all cases, all of which clearly are brought to you at Governance and Scrutiny, a part of our ongoing work with members in these spaces around about schools, inside and out with your wards. Members' learning visits are not just confined to schools, and our colleagues in the ECC management team have also worked tirelessly to sustain high standards. The visits to ECCs are listed in page 34, as well as the outcomes achieved by the ECCs. As highlighted in Gillian's report today from Hurlford, joint inspections are also listed, and that's where we have the pleasure of a joint visit with HMIE and indeed the Care Inspectorate as part of the new model of inspection. Members, moving through the report to page 34, section 3, health and wellbeing, some key highlights, and obviously the length of this section reflects the amount of work that we're doing clearly in a post-pandemic landscape around about health and wellbeing for young people. I'd like to just highlight some of the work around about learning and teaching in this area, profiling, work around gender-based violence, equally safe and clearly very pertinent now, around about the 16 days campaign that we're now virtually amidst. Members, referring to page 35, I wanted to pay particular homage to the Children at Risk of Harm inspection that took place this year as part of the Fuller Council piece, last year, reported this year, but as the largest universal service, we clearly played a key part in the process and outcomes, and also now working on any of the recommendations and outcomes that we feel are pertinent to our service. Members, moving through the report to page 36, we are seeing again a very pleasing uptake in 2-year-olds. We still have one of the highest uptakes in Scotland around about 2-year-old places, and also those places for blended models where a young person might come part-time to ECC, part-time to a childcare, a childminder or another mode of childcare. Members, work on inclusion. The East Team and Psychological Services is detailed for you from pages 37 through to 42, and page 43 provides our annual summary of the school counselling service, which again we're just hugely grateful for, and the breakdown statistics and narrative are provided for you there, members. Members, moving on to the last half of the report, section 4 clearly is now incredibly dear to us, as it always was, now that we are a Directorate of Education and Skills, but we're talking in this section on page 45, clearly around improving employability and skills and positive destinations for young people. Clearly delighted to be in Directorate formation and welcoming colleagues to our team from the employability services, and to continue to offer best outcomes for children and young people. Members, in February 2025 with 95.2% in positive destination, which is only 0.5 under national, which as one of the 9 most deprived authorities in Scotland is simply phenomenal. In June 2025, 92% had sustained those positive destinations, and we continue to work tirelessly with those young people, and indeed older young people now in that particular space as part of our employability service. Members, on page 46, our skills and learning offer is one that we're incredibly proud of, and one that is the national envy of many other local authorities. SL33, SL66, clearly soon to be SL99 that I'm going to visit next week, and page 47 highlights some of the amazing work done in these centres. Pages 49 and 50 cover the SL summer programme and training programmes, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the pictures and the narrative there as much as we did in putting this together. Members, in section 5, we move to working together with families and communities, and that starts on page 51. Clearly, members, in this section, we detail a lot of the work, and you've heard quite a bit about that from my head teachers in terms of parent counselling, parent engagement, home link workers, the holiday programme, work with our care experienced young people, our early years childcare practitioners, and clearly the transformational work and PEEP sessions, so parent empowerment sessions, are detailed on page 53. I had the joy of attending one of those this summer up in Newmilns and returned very muddy indeed from that one. So again, members, I would say if you do fancy a visit to any of those sessions, please do let us know. You'll be most welcome. Members, in moving to the final section on page 55, this covers our work in digital transformation and sustainability, which I hope you'll agree is vast. From our flagship at South West Connects, which delivers advanced hires and hires for young people online right across the authority. And members, I'm sure you can imagine the huge positive effect this has on some of our young people in incredibly rural areas, such as those young people in Doon Academy, and expanding the range of qualifications that they can access. We also have our new online school to help young people who are finding attendance at school to be difficult, and clearly that piece of allowing the schools to retain that contact with that young person even if they're not attending, as well as our ongoing collaboration with Giglets members in our Approach to Reading project. Members, I hope you would agree our climate change and sustainability work is second to none in Scotland. That's detailed in page 60, and I really would advise that we are a bit of a national envy here. From our climate change conference to our Clean Green Awards, Mission to Mars, our Litter initiative, we have the most green flags in Scotland for any local authority, biggest concentration by a country mile, around about 89% of our schools sustaining the green flag for eco schools recognition, and our initiatives have been the subject of many visits from other local authorities, and we really should be incredibly proud of the work done in this space by children and young people, elected members, parents, carers, staff and communities. So members, in returning to the report proper, the recommendations and implications of the report are listed for you, and I'm happy to take any questions or observations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda, for presenting that report. It's an excellent report. I'm going to go first with a question, and then Councillor Cogley's one in. I was looking at page 48 in our papers, which is page 9 on your report. It's just about demographics and the general population. We have 36 ECCs, we have 7 academies, 40 primary schools, 3 additional support needs facilities, schools. Our pupil roll is 15,939. So 2 things really. Where is that pupil roll? Where's the busiest? Where's the biggest cohort? And is there part of the pupil roll where it's a bit lower and it's maybe causing concern? And the other thing I'm thinking is capacity in some of our schools. Are some of our schools up near the 100% capacity, and you're having to think about actions? I know Willowbank was very full and you had to make changes. Are there other schools with the opposite problem? They're maybe only lower capacity at 50–60%, and you're thinking about changes that way as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for that question. So obviously the piece around about capacity is the subject of the report on the Learning Estate Management Plan. So the best place for detail in that space is that particular report. That reports all the conditions and suitabilities of each and every one of our schools, and it also reports on the capacities. But in answering the question, the main concentration of young people is most certainly in the Kilmarnock area. So around about particularly our academies, so Kilmarnock, Grange. We also have a very, very busy Barony campus down in Cumnock, clearly. And as you know, we also have very, very highly populated ASN centres in the form of Willowbank, Hillside and Park. But members, as you will be aware, we are bringing an ASN review to you in the fullness of time. That is well underway. Clearly, it's subject to statutory consultation in that regard around about the creation of further supported learning centres, where those would be a more appropriate way for the young person to be educated, and most importantly, members, given our place-based and locality-based focus as a council, this will allow more young people to be educated in their own hometowns and localities. So ultimately, Chair, we do have high levels of concentration in some areas. It's not at the stage of looking to build more. It's more about looking at how those young people are concentrated and what the catchment areas are. We have continued meetings around about the Capital Oversight Group and also the Learning Estate Group, and indeed the now new ASN Estate Group as a subsection of that. So there's actually 3 levels of governance, Chair, in that regard. So from the highest level, the Chief Executive oversees around about the capital programme plan, and in there we also have colleagues from planning, etc., around about new developments, etc. That then filters into the Learning Estate Group, and then we have an ASN Estate Group who monitor those figures. So at this point in time, Chair, we clearly keep a very keen eye on what those capacities are, and also in trying to anticipate what the growth will be from any of the new housing developments. But we are not planning at this stage any radical change to the school estate, and clearly if we were, we would be bringing that to the attention of members as part of any sort of statutory consultation around about changing any of the catchments, but also indeed as we could progress with the ASN review, that will also be subject to statutory consultation with our colleagues at Education Scotland. So I hope that answers most of the question, Chair, but the detail around about the capacities for all of the schools can absolutely be found in the Learning Estate Management Plan.
Thank you. Councillor Cogley.
Thank you, and thank you very much. And it's a very, very progressive report, and I think we should all be very, very proud of what you and your team are doing here for the young people in East Ayrshire. So well done for that. I mean, there are any number of things that I think we could each pick out on this, but there are just 2 that I'd like to focus on. In section 2, the school and centre improvement, I think the work you've done in primary schools has been absolutely wonderful and has helped enormously in the school inspections. Is it intended that that model will be modified and used for our academies? So that's my first point. And the second one, section 4, the employability points, which I know is one of the big things going forward. SL 99, just for clarification, is that the centre that will be opened within the town chambers in Galston? If you could clarify that one, because of course I know I've been banging on about it for a long time, but I'll be looking forward to that coming into the Irvine Valley. So thank you, Linda, if you could just go over those 2 points, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Cogley. So I'll take the one around about improvement, and the model for secondary is already up. I'll probably pass to my colleague Graham McGinn in a second, just to give you further advice in this space. And obviously you'll have seen the fruits of that one in terms of both the Doon Academy report, where a bit like Kirsty today, they were removed from follow through under the leadership of Martin Robertson, and again Scott's report today indicating again a really good outcome in the secondary sector. So I'll pass to Graham for that one if you don't mind, and he'll speak a little bit about what that model looks like. Delighted to report we have our office in Galston is now operational. We haven't given it a name, Councillor Cogley, as yet. I'm running out of digits that would double up because I'm now up at 99. So clearly the next progression would be SL 132, but it's not got that particular ring to it. So I'm going to need to go back to Marjorie and see what we're going to call the Galston office. So Galston's open. SL 99 is actually our new premises in Dalmellington, Councillor Cogley. So we've made some headway up there already. We have a small office that we're working with just now. We've got great cooperation from our colleagues in the Health and Social Care Partnership, who also have worked with clients from Justice up there. So we're doing some great work with them in this space. So that's actually operational. So we are just about to start work clearly on moving to convert the Dalmellington Area Centre that we have access to, because there's obviously another part of the Dalmellington Area Centre that's used for NHS services. So clearly what we're doing at the moment is looking at how that will operate and how we'll get the group of young people from mainly Doon Academy clearly into some really meaningful work within SL 99 around about mainly trades and engineering, Councillor Cogley. So I'll pass to Graham, Chair, through you, if that's all right, for Graham just to come in on the secondary quality assurance piece.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Cogley. There's a similar model in place in terms of secondary schools. It's well underway. All 7 secondary schools have had initial visits, 2 or 3 day visits. We're now underway in terms of an ongoing cycle of visits, so repeat visits to focus on a particular area of improvement or ongoing support for improvement. What we've introduced this year is department visits, so not just focusing on a whole school visit, but actually focusing on a department, for example, a maths department, an English department, social subjects and such like, to support improvement. And a key part of the success of the model has been the involvement of central officers and also head teachers being part of the visiting teams to be able to share that effective practice and to share learning. And a key part of the department visits that we've introduced this year is to involve deputy heads and principal teachers, so that it's extending beyond just the head teachers. So there's a real commitment to improvement at all levels, whole school level, department level, and involving a whole range of colleagues in that, as well as central officers.
Thank you very much, Linda and Graham, and thank you, Councillor Cogley, for the question. I'm going to go to Councillor Jim Todd and then Councillor Jane Sangster.
Thank you very much, Convener. Thanks very much, Linda. Graham, couple of points for clarification, if that's okay. We've got a brilliant link worker in one of our schools in our ward, and you can see the passion in that lassie's face and the way she works with parents. So maybe a wee explanation of how the link workers came about and where you're thinking of going with the link workers, because I think they do a brilliant job up and down East Ayrshire. The second part is which support mechanisms, and we're going both ends of the spectrum, but they're just as important for children of military serving personnel, and what support's there for them, and also for those unfortunate folk find themselves incarcerated, and what support's there for the children of those individuals. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, thank you very much for those questions, Councillor Todd. So I'll refer the first one around about Home Link to Graham McGinn. Through you, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Todd. Yeah, I completely agree with you in terms of Home Link workers. There's development going on just now in terms of Home Link workers to extend that role, to look beyond just that Home Link part of it. And if I can use a great example from On Thank Primary, which I'm sure members are aware of, where that work has been highlighted nationally in terms of the impact that Stephen Swan leads at On Thank, and that first step in terms of engagement with families to support families beyond just bringing their children into school. So there's certainly a huge focus on that. Schools are increasingly looking at implementing that via Pupil Equity Fund, and I would totally agree with you. There's a fantastic impact that we're seeing through these colleagues, and they're becoming a crucial and essential part of our staffing within schools. So great work going on there. Certainly a commitment through Pupil Equity Fund to continue that work. Schools have real ownership of colleagues who are employed in that way, so we would like to see that continue. I'll maybe pass to Linda for the next section.
Through you, Chair. Councillor Todd, your question on the children of military personnel is a really important one. If I put my Heedy hat back on from Loudon and then clearly my most recent experiences as director. So from a perspective of the young people in school, I think it's an awful lot about the information being with the right staff, because ultimately these children will go through significant, and I will call it, trauma around about the worry that they have for their parents on active service, but also that piece where the parent goes away for those extended periods of time, and potentially Councillor Todd, the piece around about the movement of the family in terms of movement of base. Now, whilst we don't have huge numbers of young people, of parents who are military personnel, delighted to report, and you probably know, Councillor Todd, given your own connections, that ADES have a subgroup on this very topic, and actually I think one of my previous directors of education, Graham Shaw, is actively involved in that particular space. So it's great. We receive quite frequent updates to myself. They're issued out to schools, but I think that key part is the guidance teachers, the pastoral support teachers, knowing these kids really, really well. And there's also that piece where we need to be flexible, and again, this maybe sounds slightly contradictory to the work on attendance, but we do need to be flexible about how that works around about parental leave from active duty, and also those young people being able to enjoy a holiday with their parents. And that's actually the same for some of the armed services, where those leave dates are predetermined and maybe not coinciding with what we would consider to be the school holiday. So, really pleased to advise there's a lot in that space. I think the ADES group are incredibly helpful to me in terms of sending the materials through that the schools might need, and also that support network for the young people and staff who work with those young people with parents in active of service. The work with children of young people whose parents are incarcerated, I'm really glad my colleague Marion McCauley's in the room as well, because actually there's the piece whereby it's the work with the parent who might be incarcerated, and you'll obviously know about some of the play activity that goes on through the prison. If I take that to a school level, it again comes down to knowledge. And that piece, and again, Heidi hat back on, the piece about knowing those young people where there is a parent incarcerated and how that young person is supported to understand that space, but also the piece around about how they're supported to potentially undertake visits, etc. So there's a lot of work there around about the liaison with colleagues in the Health and Social Care Partnership, but also again through some of the networks that exist nationally in terms of helping both the parent who is incarcerated and keeping that attachment going with their child, but also that piece for us in education about working with the child who's clearly going through the trauma of having a parent incarcerated for whatever reason has befallen. So ultimately, Councillor Todd, it to me will always be about knowing your young people really, really well, making sure the right staff know them really, really well without that feeling as if it's open information and open season on that child's personal circumstances. So it's very much about how we support them both through school and potentially support staff, psychological services, but also that partnership with my colleagues across in the Health and Social Care Partnership who undertake more of the prison-focused work in that space. But I've had the joy of seeing it firsthand, you know, that piece of work being undertaken. And I know it's something that remains dear to us, and it's actually a project we've just started again with the employability service around about that piece of employability for those parents who might be coming towards release. So, you know, glad to see that's been just recently revised. I know the Deputy Chief Executive presented a paper on that recently, and I'm really proud to say that my team are embracing that particular piece to try and support those parents upon release. But through you, Chair, I'm not sure if Marion, I'm sorry to put you in the spot, Marion, but if Marion wants to come in any further on the piece that pertains more to the Health and Social Care Partnership, through you, Chair.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Councillor Todd. As Linda said, the important thing is to know who the children are. Not every child who's got a parent incarcerated is known to social work services, because they don't need to be. But also understanding why the person is in prison, why they're in custody, because actually it may be due to harm within the family environment, considering situations such as domestic abuse. And obviously we're often involved in those situations. The key is understanding the circumstances, assessing the situation and putting the supports in place for the children. And obviously the involvement of the prison justice team and the community team should a person be on leave that's post-custody release that is supervised, whether that's through parole or extended sentences. So we are involved in supporting a range of children, but it really does depend on the circumstances in which they find themselves, and they are wide, varied and often complex. But often, to provide an assurance, we're not involved. And as Linda's pointed out, particularly at HMP Kilmarnock, there are arrangements in place in local prisons to ensure that relationship, where it's appropriate to do so, is maintained in a way that is as possible and as natural as possible within really difficult contexts and circumstances. Hope that provides a bit of additional context to what Linda's set out. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Todd, for the question and the answers. Councillor Sangster, would you want in? And then we're going to Councillor Canning.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've just got a question and a couple of points for clarity. Linda, on page 9 of the report, I'm just looking at the school estate, and I'm looking at the 7 additional supported for learning centres. Now, I know some of them are relatively new. I'm thinking particularly, as an example, Cross House, where we have some primary ones who are now attending there, who would have historically went to Willowbank. So I'm just wondering how is, I know it's early doors, I know we're only in October, but I'm just wondering how that's actually, how we're managing that and how that's going, how the staff are coping, but more importantly, how are our young people coping with that. The other points of clarity was just around exclusion. I mean, back when I was in school, you get suspended or you get expelled, and I think it might be worth just clarifying what you mean by exclusion and how that is done now. You know, and you know who decides if a pupil gets excluded and for what reason would a pupil be excluded. You know, and the other point was round about the East team. I just saw, I can't find the page now, but here it is here. I think it's on page 39. I'm just wondering about the East Ayrshire support team and what it is they're actually doing. I was a wee bit concerned to read that you know, it's this year they've participated in a comprehensive package of bespoke professional learning. Now, it does say it's in relation to the service improvement plan, but was that something that was lacking previously in terms of, you know, the you know, their training and their professional learning, or is it just purely is this more of an improvement rather than than it was something lacking? And just a general overview of what the East team actually do would be great. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you. Through you, Chair and Councillor Sangs. I'll try and take them in turn, but I'm going to take great joy in the first one because I went out and saw the new class a couple of weeks ago, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I would invite any elected member to come along. This is our new set of premises in the Crosshouse campus building that many of you will remember. And I had the absolute privilege of joining Tina Gittins and Kirsty Thompson. I wanted to go and see it for myself in terms of how that would look and feel to the young people. The new premises are absolutely fantastic. They are incredibly quiet in terms of the needs, the neurodiversity of the young people that are over there, and they all have their, you know, individual needs in that particular space. I'm going to have to pay absolute homage to the staff who are working with them. So clearly, in that space, we've got a wonderful outdoor space for the young people. Their own gym now that we've done significant movement. That used to be a storage space in there. I would probably urge you, Councillor Sangster, to come and join me on another wee visit. I think it's one of those that once you see it, yeah, absolutely get it. I probably was, you know, concerned with how was it going to run, and therefore very early in the new term. It's also clearly close enough to the communication centre. Clearly the alignment of those young people, and you know, clearly you're right that there might have been young people who could have gone to Willowbank, but actually when you look at the strength of association with this new class of young people in this bespoke area, it's given them a chance to come together as a brand new P1. I was outside playing some games with them. They were just absolutely tremendous. And clearly the association to the Crosshouse Communication Centre, which is obviously deliberately designed to deliver on neurodiversity type issues. So ultimately they've settled in incredibly well. They're now really installed in a routine. A few weeks ago, we were able to free up the extra space for the gym, etc., to give the young people that space. But it's an incredibly calm atmosphere in that regard. So I'm just hugely grateful. My colleague Maureen McSeveny sat in here today to Maureen, Ian Burgoyne, Julie McCulloch and others, but clearly Tina Gittins and Kirsty Thompson over at the centre for not just, you know, clearly Crosshouse Primary School and ECC, but now Crosshouse Communication Centre and that lovely natural extension. So if, as a result of today's meeting, any elected member would like to go and see the new area that we've got for the young people, I'll be only too delighted, and I'll take the chance to go back out again myself and see it again. So just delighted to tell you, Councillor Sangster, that has just worked an absolute treat. If I move on to exclusions, so Councillor Sangster, that one, you referred to the word expelled, and there'll be no doubt different connotations for us all in the room, depending on what your own school experiences might or might not have been. So any of the exclusions you see there are temporary, Councillor Sangster. We don't expel. Expel would be, I think, what we would understand in old money as being you're out and you're not coming back, but ultimately exclusion is temporary. All of the schools work to the same rules on exclusion. It's known as Standard Circular 8. It's the rule book in terms of how a young person might find themselves to be excluded. But as I mentioned earlier, in respect of covering the exclusion stats, it is a measure of last resort. We want the young people to know that they're welcome in school, and they're, you know, they're loved and cherished. But there are occasions whereby the behaviours that are exhibited by a young person are so high tariff that the exclusion needs to be put in place, both for the young person potentially to have that time to reflect and discuss and be supported, but also for that school to have time, or staff members or other young people involved in that to have the time to heal and regroup, and also think about what the next step in that young person's support plan might be for returns. So any significant length of exclusion, so the likes of the 10-day exclusion actually has to come to myself. So to give you an idea of quantum, Standard Circular 8 details that, and schools are not permitted to exclude a care experienced young person without my designate's approval in that space. So I hope you would see members back in 2016-17. And that's not about, oh, that's prior to my appointment, but clearly coming into post, I did note a significantly high level of exclusions taking place in all sectors, and we worked very hard with the head teachers at that time, and still ongoing, in terms of reduction in that, because when we do exclude a young person, there is clearly, you know, that danger that they take that message to be that they're not wanted and loved by their school, which is actually just not the case. But it is that potential members where there are times where that young person does need to understand they've crossed the line. So I hope that's helpful in explaining that. I'll now come to your last question, Councillor Sangster, which was about the East Ayrshire support team. The bespoke support is absolutely not any slant on their ability as a team. It was actually, we asked them what they were looking for. So it's very much around about that bespoke being, what would you like to see covered? They are an incredibly talented group of staff right across the piece, be that in classroom assistants or the teachers who work in the East Ayrshire support team. We are underway in a consultation about how the East Ayrshire support team actually work. That's part of our ASN review, Councillor Sangster. So I'm going to say I had the absolute privilege of being with the full East team just 2 weeks ago in this very chamber to outline what that consultation would look like, because clearly elected members, as we move forward with ASN review and we're looking to have more locality based supports, that does then mean that we are likely to have to come back to you and seek your wise counsel, but also permission to maybe reform how staff work. But there is absolutely the ability and the commitment of this particular team are second to none. They are incredibly committed to our young people right across the authority, and a lot of that very much came through the conversations I was having with them 2 weeks ago, because like them, what we don't want is any reform of how we support young people with additional support needs to be at any detriment to any child in East Ayrshire. So and that was coming across loud and clear from the staff at that time. So I hope that answers that particular question. Clearly, members, we have now appointed a new strategic education manager for inclusion in the form of Julie McCulloch. So she's working really closely with the principal teachers in that particular team and all of the team, as well as Ian Burgoyne, in terms of that particular consultation. So no, they're an incredibly valuable group of staff, and really any reforms more about how do we work and how do we support, rather than the quality of that support, which is absolutely outstanding. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Linda. Excellent answers. We're going now to Councillor Canning and then Councillor Hogg.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Linda, for an excellent report. And I'm sure, as we all are, particularly impressed with what we're doing in the digital space, and also the SL, obviously. Following on the participation or budgeting, can you remind me how much we get as a council in total for, you might need to come back to me, but for PEF funding, and also how much we get for the strategic equity funding in total? Yeah.
Through you, Chair, I will absolutely need to come back to you on that one. I think Graham is frantically typing as we speak on the quantum of both. And clearly, as you know, members, that the PEF varies hugely, you know, school to school, but we will revert back to you. I'll give you a total for both pupil equity fund and strategic equity funding, which is in old money, the SAC money, members. Obviously, SAC was disbanded away from the 9 most deprived local authorities to be distributed across all 32 local authorities. So SAC money as such as a currency change to strategic equity funding that all local authorities got. But I'll either just send you an update individually if that's okay, Councillor Canning. I'll give you a quantum on that. If any other members want that particular quantum, also happy to give you that as well.
Yep. And so just one other quick question. In terms of the school and internal inspections that we do, have we covered the whole school estate? And then is that a rolling programme, or are there plans to do something else once we've been across the whole portfolio?
I'm going to very gladly hand to my colleague Graham McGinn on that one, who plans that entire unit of work, Councillor Canning. So through you, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, through you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Canning, for the question. Yeah, as it stands, it's a rolling programme, so that there's that cycle of improvement, focus and preparation, not solely the focus, but in preparation for inspections as they come along. It's served as well, as you'll see from inspection reports that have been presented to governance and scrutiny over the past wee while. That said, we're always open to new ideas and looking at different ways of working, and perhaps one way that we'll maybe take as we move forward is more of a targeted approach, where we see particular need in a school, regardless of where they are in terms of the inspection programme. So as it stands, it's a rolling programme and it's served as well. So we're continuing on that basis just now, but we're always open to looking at new ideas and different ways of working.
Thanks.
Thank you, Graham. I can see on page 99 of the report the great big list of all the schools that you have managed to get the school inspections in. So you've done very well. There's about 15 there. So the rolling programme, there's more to do next year. That's all in the last year or two. Well done. Can I ask, please, Linda, you mentioned Standard Circular 8, the rule book. Is that an East Ayrshire Council thing, or is that Scottish Government or UK Government?
Clearly it's based, Chair, through you, it's based on national guidelines around about exclusion. So clearly we work within the confines of the national guidance around about exclusion, but Standard Circular 8. So we have a suite of standard circulars. So for example, Standard Circular 57 is for child protection. So there's obviously ones that head teachers use more than others. So Standard Circular 8 is the one that they use around about exclusion. So it gives them guidance around about the types of incident that might lead to exclusion when permission is needed at a higher level, for who needs to be notified upon exclusion, those sorts of things. So it's based on national guidance. There is obviously national work going on just now that Ruth Miller will have detailed in the council conversation we held recently on, violence and aggression type incidents within school, and that's a group called Sagrabis at this point in time. So whether we'll see any further guidance being changed, and that's also clearly pertinent to national guidance, which is included, engaged and involved. There's several parts to that. I think we're now in part 3 around about that. So the national guidance is continually updated in that regard. But again, the main thrust here, Chair, is that it's a measure of last resort in that regard. But as I said, there are circumstances where, as a head, I've had to use it previously myself, and clearly that's something that's in the gift of the heads out there, should that be required for high level incidents.
Thank you, Linda. And another new acronym for me. Every day's a school day. Sagrabis, that's another one I've not heard of. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a question, it's just more of a comment on the report. With education, it's a cornerstone in our communities, and I think post-COVID we can all see across East Ayrshire the continued improvements that are supporting our young people. And recently it's been demonstrated by the reports that have come before us at GNS that we've seen that these are challenging times, there's no doubt about it, with their increased additional support needs and more being identified all the time. And education very much comes under public scrutiny just as much as health does. So it's just a thank you on behalf of myself and my constituents down in the Doon Valley as well. And to all the members in education who have done so much work over this period, it's just a thank you, and for an excellent report. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, thank you very much. Really appreciate those comments, Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, and I would just echo that. And I mean, your department's doing great work. The eco schools and the green flags, brilliant work. There's so much going on. I'm looking at Mission to Moon. I've got page 100 in the report. Mission to Moon, Journey to Jupiter, shoot to Saturn. The distance from Earth to Saturn is 746 million miles. There you go. So you're never too old to learn. Every day's a school day, as they say. So we thank our education department for that. And I think we'll close that item now on the agenda if there's nothing else, members.
Just to confirm, we'll get those figures from Linda and we'll just circulate it to all members in the normal way for everyone's information. So if you just send them to Stuart, we'll get them out.
Thank you very much. Just to wrap that one up, members, if you go to page 36 on your report, if I can get my laptop to work. The recommendations are there in paragraph 2. Are we happy with the recommendations? Note the content of the Education Services Standard and Quality Report. Congratulate the children and young people of East Ayrshire on their achievements. Recognise the support they receive from teachers, support staff, local authority officers and managers. Otherwise, note the contents of the report. Happy with that, elected members? Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 7. It starts on page 105. On your papers, and for this one we go to Marion Macaulay, Head of Children's Health Care and Justice Services. Marion, thank you.
Thank you. Morning, members. The report presented sets out the activity and overview of the Outwith Placement Screening Group, or as it's affectionately known, OPSG. So I might refer to it as OPSG if that's okay. This group has been in existence in a variety of different forms in excess of 15 years, and it has evolved as necessary over that time. Paragraphs 3 through to 14 sets out the background to the work and the activity of the Outwith Placement Screening Group and how a child's circumstances come to be considered by the group. Key points to highlight are that it operates within a legislative context. It seeks to support children who require access to enhanced support. For clarity, this is not a group that care plans for children. This responsibility is maintained by the team around the child. This is a group with a distinct budget. The work of the group, the work that the group oversees is within both education services and social work services. And just for wider context, the budget is a council budget, delegated budget to the Integration Joint Board, delivered through the Health and Social Care Partnership, which in turn then commissions services to provide residential care and education, external day education, and enhancements to mainstream education, such as classroom supports and additional teaching support. So that kind of covers some of the key aspects of what the group looks at. As set out in paragraph 8, the key principles of this work are influenced by the promise, which builds on the key principles of keeping children in East Ayrshire whenever this is possible. In order to achieve this, there needs to be a significant upscale in universal family support to provide targeted preventative approaches and access to early help and support at each point of escalation right up to the edge of care. Research shows that for the most vulnerable children and families, undifferentiated family support does not achieve the desired outcomes or prevent children being in the care of the local authority. As the promise sets out, schools in Scotland must be ambitious for care experienced children and to ensure that they have what they need to thrive. The promise also states that schools must not exclude or have reduced timetables for children, care experienced children, and that formal and informal exclusions of care experienced children should not happen. Linda's touched on this in the previous paper and sets out the work being done to support children to stay in school in often challenging and competing and complex circumstances. Further to this, the promise challenges us that when we accommodate children, the promise challenges us around the number of children we accommodate. It challenges us that we accommodate too many children, and it further challenges us that when we do accommodate children, they should be retained within their own community. It focuses in on the importance of connectedness, of maintaining family relationships, which is fundamental to life well-being outcomes, and it focuses particularly on the maintenance of relationships with brothers and sisters. And I have to confess, which to our disappointment still remains a challenge, often due to the distances of where children are placed away from East Ayrshire. and that's about the availability of alternative arrangements. So moving forward, paragraph 15 through to 22 sets out the wider context, sets out that the majority of services commissioned through the group are done so via the Scotland Excel framework, which the vast majority of local authorities are signed up to. There are some instances where this is not possible, and that's either through demand outstripping the available resources or the complexity of the need that's being presented not being able to be met by the providers that are on the framework. Paragraph 19 sets out the range of fee that is frequently applied. Fees in excess of this range have also been quoted, often by providers off framework. Thus far, we have not accessed a fee in excess of the one that's set out in the document, which is over £8,000. So just for clarity, we have not paid thus far £13,000 a week for a placement for a child, although I know a number of local authorities have, and indeed more. Paragraphs 20 through to 22 specifically set out the competitive environment that some of these providers operate within. And it focuses in on the work that's being taken forward by the Scottish Government on proposed legislation to manage and mitigate profit from care. Whilst complex, it was one of the areas that was profiled in the promise and has been taken forward. Paragraph 23 through to 25 sets out how children are supported and the high vulnerability profile of the children who require to access externally commissioned resources. I suspect across a range of different reports you will have seen that the level of need the children are experiencing is increasing, both in terms of numbers of children but also the depth of the complexity. I think Linda actually touched on that as well. Paragraph 26 through to 30 sets out some of the preventative approaches that are being deployed and supported through the Out With Placement Screening Group. And it also sets out the work being taken forward to manage the demand within internal resources. Paragraph 29 and Appendix 1 profiles that there has been a change in commissioned specialist external day education, a move from 6 in 2019 to 14 in 2024, and also in terms of additional support for learning, again from 8 to 13. Again, I would suspect reflecting that increasing need and depth of complexity. The report also reflects on some of the actions that have been taken due to budget pressures, and that has led to some reduction in those numbers in 2025. Again, the detail of that is set out in Appendix 1. So paragraph 31 sets out some of the challenges and how the OPSG has operated in the last year to comply with the updated financial regulations and in response to the challenging financial climate that both the Health and Social Care Partnership and local authority are operating within. This has seen some reduction in demand for externally commissioned services, but demand for these services remain high, and the level of demand exceeds the available budget. In the lifetime of the OPSG, demand for externally commissioned care and care and education placements has remained relatively static at an average of 20 children each year. The costs of those services has increased year on year at a percentage rate that is in excess of the uplift applied to the budget. Similarly, there has been an increase in the demand for all other commissioned services over the same period of time. And again, you can see that set out in Appendix 1. Paragraph 34 through to 55 sets out some of the key challenges and risks associated with the OPSGs. These risks relate to the provision of the right support at the right time for children and the real significant financial risks that we all face. The demand is outstripping the available budget to commission services, and this is driven by a national context where the budget inflationary increases is not maintaining the pace with uplifts agreed by Scotland Excel, and also the cost challenges of those providers who are off framework. That's driven by demand out with Scotland, where English, Welsh and Northern Irish children are coming into Scotland for care placements. There is the challenge of some unmet need, which is held until such time as either an alternative budget is made available or the OPSB budget is brought into balance or surplus and as such is then able to meet that need. This is challenging for all, and it's not where we would wish to be. Within this context of the demand and purchase of externally commissioned services, East Ayrshire performs incredibly well when benchmarked against other local authorities. To provide some wider context in terms of those local authorities, so when we look at local authorities with comparable or lower child populations, with fewer children living in SMID areas 1 and 2, they tend to spend more on similar services. I'll give you some examples around that. So East Ayrshire currently spends on residential provision only approximately £94,500 per week. This does not include the various education supports also commissioned through the LPSG, as it's not possible to make a similar comparison. The other areas don't report it in the same way. So some examples around spend across Scotland. Obviously, I will not name the areas that this relates to, but one area spends in excess of £500,000 per week. It does have a higher child population, so that's important to note that. Looking at some comparable areas where the child population is either the same or slightly less, some spend is respectively 177,800, 189,900 and 135,000 for each a week. So you can see that our weekly spend, whilst we consider that to be high, is benchmarks incredibly favourably across comparable areas. These are just but a few areas. I didn't want to work through all of the areas that have provided this information, but we are definitely in the lowest 10 areas in relation to this. I think that reflects how robustly this budget's managed. I think it reflects the efforts that are being made across social work and education services to support children to be maintained in East Ayrshire, in provision in East Ayrshire. We know that that is the best place for them to be, and it best meets their needs, but also gives them the best opportunity for positive lifelong outcomes. So I'll conclude at that point and turn you to paragraph 2 and the recommendations, and obviously happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Marion, for that report. I'll just comment on paragraphs 19, 20, 21. It's quite shocking that the way the costs are going up and that private investment hedge funds are buying into this and profiteering out of this. Conglomerates that are registered offshore, probably to avoid tax. It's absolutely disgraceful, and I certainly hope this government does something to try and tackle this problem. I'll open up to questions, comments from elected members. Councillor Kyle and then Councillor Todd.
I found it quite shocking. I have to be honest, I found it scary that these kids are going through this. Page 113, paragraph 39. What happens to these young people when the purchase providers terminate their provision? I know we've got a waiting list. Do these kids go back into a waiting list to go somewhere else?
Thank you. That's a really important question. So this is incredibly challenging for the child concerned, because often the children that are in externally purchased and commissioned placements have experienced significant trauma and significant loss. So loss of family, loss of relationships, loss of connectedness. So when a provider gives notice, and the notice is 28 days, so we have 28 days to find an alternative place for them to live. You can imagine that what that means is the relationship between the people that are caring for that child and the child has broken down to a point where it's not retrievable, it's not sustainable. So it can be a really traumatic period of time. What happens to the children? We seek to identify an alternative care placement for them. That can be incredibly challenging because the providers do have relationships with one another. But also, if a child has an increasing number of placements that break down, there is an increasing reluctance of other providers to seek to support them. So you can see that this is really difficult. There have been instances where, as a local authority, we are the provider as a last resort. So we've had to bring young people back into, for example, our children's houses, where maybe that's not the best place for them to be living, but also it's not the best place for the children who are already living there to experience the challenges that that young person is experiencing. We have also we've also had to develop some really bespoke packages of care on a very short-term basis. So, for example, using our own internal accommodation and enhancing that with additional support staff, either through our own services, but also requiring to commission that from private providers. So there is a range of options that we deploy in order to ensure that a young person is cared for in a way that we are satisfied with. The additional challenge often is that the 28-day notice is not something that folk hold to, and that often we are expected to move children within a less than 24-hour period, 48-hour period. Thankfully, it is not overly common. It does happen. It's happened a number of times in the past year, for example, but it is relatively rare, but incredibly challenging, particularly for that child and the team that are having to identify a good place for them to live. I think the other challenge which I would profile in that regard is often what's available is not what we would necessarily always want for a child. It might not be a provider that would be able to meet all of their needs, but we need we need to do the basics around finding a safe place for them to live first, and then seeking to enhance that with additional supports. I wish I had a more positive response for you, but I would, yeah, it's very, very challenging in those circumstances. Thank you for seeking to profile that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kell and Marion for the answer. Councillor Todd.
Thanks, convener. Thanks, Marion. Just for a wee bit of back info, and I'll be careful what I say because it's really, really important. In our ward, we had this situation, as Marion knows well, where a hedge fund, like you were saying, took advantage of the loopholes, and there were a couple of young tortured souls moved up into a private house in our ward, and it was really, really difficult managing the situation. My thanks go to our legal department, our planning department, and the social workers, because it was a whole minefield having to navigate to get a result that helped the young person, but also helped the area where that place was. The protections with loopholes with these companies is incredibly difficult to break down. So I totally agree with what you're saying, convener. I hope both governments can get together and work out a solution, because it's going to happen again. When people chase the buck, they don't care about the individual that has to be cared for. So my thanks goes out to you guys, Marion. The work that you do behind the scenes is absolutely incredible, and my hat's off to you. And if there's anything I hope that any 32 of us can do to support that, we will. It was handled very well by our officers. It wasn't handled very well with the organisation that was running the house. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor Todd. I suppose just I can provide a bit of context in terms of not the situation you referred to, but the wider context. In East Ayrshire, there are 19 providers of either residential care or residential care and education through a range of private arrangements, charitable arrangements. Often, the vast majority of children in those arrangements are not either East Ayrshire children, but actually often Scottish children. So what you have are children with high levels of complexity on different legislation, subject to different legislation, living very, very far away from home, and can often be very dysregulated in their behaviours. So it is a challenging context. We do have some arrangements in place locally to support those providers, whilst we don't have particular responsibilities to them. We have responsibilities to the children that are placed there because they're living in East Ayrshire. albeit their host and home authority retains most of those responsibilities. So we seek to engage through our contracting and commissioning officer really positively with all of those providers alongside colleagues, for example, in police and fire and rescue and education. And because we've learned that good relationships often find a way through some of those challenges that you've set out, not unique to that provider, but they perhaps approached it in a particular way. Thanks.
Thank you, Marion, and thank you, Councillor Todd, for the question. Councillor Canning.
Thanks, Marion. Thanks for an excellent report. I think just want to say again, I mean, I think it's, for me, for all members, some of those numbers you quoted were eye-watering, and I think it's incredibly reassuring to know that on the one side, we've got you making sure we get the best outcomes, and on the other side, we've got, the team that we've got making sure that the money is, because it's obviously a difficult balance to strike, but I'm pretty sure that we get it as good as we possibly can because we've got you and the finance team. So just really a comment there. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Canning. Anything else to members? No other comments or questions? Okay, we'll go back to the paper, the recommendations. This is page 105. Paragraph 2 is the recommendations. I can find it on my laptop, sorry. Oh, there, thank you. Right, recommendations, not the use of the outwith placements for 24-25, not the continuing challenges in predicting levels of demand, need and risk, not the ongoing challenges to achieve a balanced budget and actions to address this, note the work undertaken to reduce use of external and additional provision, otherwise note the contents of the report. Are we happy with that, elected members? Those recommendations. Thank you very much. That ends item 7 in the agenda. What I'm proposing now is we've been here nearly 2 hours, 1 hour and 51 minutes. I'm proposing we take a comfort break, give you time to get some lunch. So we'll return in 30 minutes, which is 12:21 precisely. Okay, and then we'll continue with the rest of the agenda. We'll be going to item 8. Thank you. Can we pause recording, please, Robert? Okay, members, we'll call the meeting to order again. Recording has started. Thank you. We're at item 8 on the agenda, which is page 118, with our annual assurance statement report by the Head of Housing and Communities. It says Lisa Punton here. I don't think it is. I think it's Wendy Johnson that's doing this one. Wendy, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, members. The purpose of this report is to seek approval to submit the annual assurance statement for 2025 to the Scottish Housing Regulator. The recommendations are noted at paragraph 2 of the report, and they are to approve the Council's proposed annual assurance statement for submission to the regulator by the 31st of October 2025 as set out in Appendix 3 of the report. Note the progress of the Council's annual assurance statement Improvement Action Plan 2025 as set out in Appendix 2 of the report, and to note the contents of the self-assessment matrix and evidence used to gain assurance on compliance with the regulatory requirements as set out in Appendix 1 of the report. Paragraphs 3 and 4 set out the background. In February 2019, the regulator published its revised regulatory framework, Regulation of Social Housing in Scotland, and this framework set out the regulatory requirements which must be met by all social landlords in Scotland. Paragraphs 5 to 8 describes the timescale for submission of the annual assurance statement and landlords' compliance with all of the relevant regulatory requirements within the framework and what action is required when the landlord does not fully comply. The Council's proposed annual assurance statement for 2025 is available at Appendix 3 to the report. Paragraphs 9 and 10 describe how a landlord gains assurance on its compliance with regulatory requirements and the recommendations to keep a record of the evidence used in getting the necessary assurance on compliance with the regulatory requirements. In order to gain assurance and compliance, a self-assessment matrix has been developed and can be seen at Appendix 1, setting out each of the relevant regulatory requirements and the associated evidence used to gain assurance on compliance. Paragraphs 11 to 16 describe non-compliance and what a landlord should do when it identifies area for improvement and how appropriate action should be agreed to identify and address these areas. Not all areas of non-compliance need to be recorded in the statement. It's up to landlords to reach a judgment on whether the issue identified is material or significant, with any areas of material non-compliance disclosed within the statement. There are a number of areas local authorities must consider, and paragraph 12 provides distinct reasons to determine non-compliance. This section also provides guidance on non-compliance and engagement with the regulator, and that the regulator may reach a different view on whether an issue is material if they are engaging with the landlord at a later date, and that is a matter of judgment. Where a landlord identifies an area for improvement and discloses this in its statement, the regulator will not necessarily engage with them. This would only occur if the regulator wasn't assured that the landlord had effective plans in place and the capacity and willingness to improve or resolve the issue. Members might recall that in its 2024 annual assurance statement, the Council noted that 417 of the Council's properties had outstanding electrical installation condition reports. Work was undertaken to actively address these properties with outstanding EICRs, and this was completed in February this year. Based on the evidence used to gain assurance with regulatory requirements, as outlined in the self-assessment matrix, a progress update and the Council's annual assurance statement action plan for 2025 is available at Appendix 2 to the report. Members, paragraph 17 to 19 provides detail in relation to correspondence dated 11th of March 2025 from the regulator to all registered social landlords and local authorities with advice on preparing for the 2025 annual assurance statement, specifically in relation to tenants and resident safety, and in particular the 7 elements of gas safety, electrical safety, water safety, fire safety, asbestos, damp and mould, and lift safety. In line with the Scottish Housing Regulator's request, assurance of the Council's compliance has been included in the proposed annual assurance statement for 2025 as outlined in Appendix 3 of the report. The implications are set out at paragraphs 20 to 23, and the Council's annual assurance statement provides assurance to the Council as a landlord, tenants and other service users that we comply with the regulatory requirements and supports the vision and priorities within the East Ayrshire Community Plan for 2015 to 2030, associated delivery plans and the Council's strategic plan from 2024 to 2027. The Council failing to submit an annual assurance statement to the regulator by the 31st of October would be a breach of the Scottish Housing Regulator's regulatory requirements, which are based on the statutory powers given to the Scottish Housing Regulator in the Housing Scotland Act 2010. Members, to conclude, this is a very positive report demonstrating the continued commitment and breadth of work carried out in ensuring now compliance with the regulatory requirements and the submission of the Council's annual assurance statement to the regulator by the 31st of October 2025. This concludes the report, and I'm happy to take any questions or observations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I'll open it up to questions or comments from elected members. Councillor Todd.
Thanks very much, Convener. Thanks, Wendy. A really good report. I think keeping an audit all the things that are going on, it's really, really important. What steps would we as a council take with absent landlords? Because there was a big rafter buying houses maybe 20 years ago. A lot of it to do with the Good Friday Agreement. But what steps would we take with landlords that are not fulfilling their obligations as part of the legislation? Thank you.
Thanks. Through you, Chair, if I can defer just to my colleague Lisa Punt.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Todd. So through you, Chair, the annual assurance statement relates to council properties. However, we as a council have a private rented sectors team that sits within the homeowners team, and they enforce the regulations as they relate to private landlords. Councillor Todd, and you'll be aware of the breadth of work that goes on there and the liaison that we have with private landlords. We also have an IMIN service who work with people at risk of homelessness, and they mediate between private landlords and tenants to prevent homelessness in that sector. Where there is repairing issues, etc., it's progressed via the PRS team, and if required, then it would progress to the first tier tribunal, but we've really robust procedures in place in that respect. Thank you.
I want back in.
Thanks, Convener. No, I just wanted to raise that because they do a great job. That connection between our housing team and the private sector, it seems to be working really, really well. Certainly any time that I've asked for the private sector team to look into issues, almost all of the time there's been a solution. resolution. So pleased about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Todd. Anyone else? Anyone online? Clear just now. Just my comment. Thank you for the invitation 2 weeks ago, I think, when I was to your offices and met your tenant safety team. Very interesting work that's going on there. The technology, the new tech that you're putting into some of the houses where you've had dampness problems reported. I don't know if you want to tell us a wee bit about that. It's really good stuff that's going on. Although I think you said it's about £1,000 a house to put all this tech into a house. So it won't be able to be done in every house, but we're rolling it out to some of them. The way that you monitor carbon monoxide, and all the information you get for that. If you want to tell us a wee bit about that, it was very interesting. Thank you for hosting me for that visit.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so you're talking about environmental sensors that we use to install within properties to provide data to both ourselves and also to our tenants. So we're taking a risk-based approach to the installation of environmental sensors. So our aim specifically is to attend and inspect within 7 days of upon receipt of a report of damp and mould issue, carry out a survey and identify any remedial works that we think are required to resolve the issue. If there is significant issues at that point and it's felt that an installation of an environmental sensor at that point would be necessary, then we would take steps to install then. Following that, if we then think that we are resolving the issue, we will monitor that for 90 days, and if the tenant comes back to us with the same issue within that period of time, then we will install environmental sensors at that point. The environmental sensors actually provide us with a dashboard of information relevant to the conditions within properties. So it can measure the level of humidity, the level of cold, the level of heat, and provide a really robust picture of actually what's happening within that household. Now, we can monitor that remotely through a dashboard, and the tenant or indeed the tenant's family can also monitor that through an app on their phones that also gives them advice with regard to heating and ventilating the property to cut down on any issues that may be identified within the property as a result. The technology is obviously evolving all the time, and our team have embarked on a big training programme, and we're looking at all the tech that's out there in terms of future proofing our stock and trying to get that technology in. Thanks.
Thank you. It was really interesting that the things that you can monitor about the carbon dioxide levels. If the windows haven't been open regular, you can even monitor each room in a house, and you can see when the humidity is too high, and your officers live on the dashboard can phone that house and say to them, your humidity is high, you need to open your windows. Or maybe they've left the shower on. You can see these things. You can monitor exactly what's happening. The other interesting thing you were telling me was about it might show up when a property's empty. So with the technology and monitoring temperatures and humidity and stuff, if someone has moved out and they've moved in with a girlfriend or a partner somewhere else, then you can see that the temperatures drop and that house actually is empty. It's become void. And you can then make inquiries what's happening with that address. There's loads of interesting technology, and it's brilliant what you're doing. The work you're doing is great. It's solving dampness and it's stopping it coming back, and it's really good. Important work. Thank you very much for your report and for the visit a couple of weeks ago. Really interesting stuff. If there's no other questions, comments, members? No. We'll go back to page 118. It's the paragraph 2 as the recommendations. Wendy's already read them out to us. I'm not going to read them again. Are we happy with these recommendations? Paragraph 2, page 118. Thank you, elected members. And we'll let you get back to your work. Thank you. We go to item 9 in the agenda, which is page 133. It's the Health and Social Care Partnership Strategic Commissioning Board. And for this report, we go to Alex Fee, Interim Chief Financial Officer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So the purpose of the report is to provide the Governance and Scrutiny Committee with information on the activity and progress of the Health and Social Care Partnership Strategic Commissioning Board. for the 2024-25 financial year. And this report was previously presented to the IGIB Audit and Performance Committee on the 27th of May this year. In terms of the background, the Commissioning Board was initially established in 2017-18 to drive the delivery of transformational change. Overview of this board is provided by the IGIB Audit and Performance Committee, and through this to the IGIB itself. So the report provides details of applications to the Transformation Fund for the purposes of service redesign and achieving efficiencies. Information is also available in the Best Value Service Review Programme. And it's worthy of noting that the next iteration of the Best Value Review Programme has been finalised with emphasis on cost reduction and financial sustainability. And this recognises the pressures on health and social care budgets, both locally and nationally. So in terms of the Commissioning Board, it met on 9 occasions during 24-25 where applications to the Transformation Fund were considered, and a schedule of reporting on existing transformational programmes and update reports and new redesign and efficiency savings proposals initiatives were received. And a brief summary of this activity is set out in the table at paragraph 5. And it's important to highlight that operational lead officers are assigned responsibility for delivery of these projects and for reporting back to the Commissioning Board on progress in relation to each project. Paragraphs 8 to 11 provide information on the Transformation Fund. And East Ayrshire Council, back in 2017-18, in setting their budget for the IGIB, allocated an initial non-recurring sum of £1 million for transformational change purposes. And the IGIB has approved in subsequent years, right up until 2023-24, the retention of further uncommitted balances, both in relation to budgets delegated by the Council and also by the Health Board. This is to ensure a continued focus on early intervention and transformational change initiatives. The route for any applications to the fund are made through the Strategic Commissioning Board to then provide ongoing oversight and scrutiny of any allocated funding. And during 2024-25, a total of 4 Transformation Fund funding applications have been submitted to and approved by the Commissioning Board, totalling £280,999. In addition, an achieved Transformational Change Fund savings, £400,000 times 2 have been charged against the fund, and these unachieved savings have been considered as baseline budget pressures as part of the budget approval process for the current financial year. And also a sum of £824,000 was approved as part of Financial Recovery Plan 2 during 2024-25 to be drawn down from the Transformational Change Fund on a non-recurring basis to offset budget pressures in that year. This sum was also included as a 2025-26 baseline budget pressure as part of the budget approval process for the current year. So these charges against the fund have been partially offset by £692,000 in funding reinstatements following a full review of previously committed expenditure. And the table at paragraph 11 provides a summary of the balance at 31st of March 2025, and that's as contained in the IGIB reserve within the audited annual accounts, as well as a breakdown of approved commitments in 2024-25. Paragraph 12 provides information on the Workforce Development Fund, and this fund was initially funded through approved retention of uncommitted balances in 21-22 and was created in response to staff recruitment and retention difficulties, which is an issue for health and social care services, both at a local and at a national level, as well as for staff training and wellbeing initiatives. And during the 2024-25 period, a total of 5 funding applications totalling £627,675 have been approved by the Commissioning Board, and the table at that paragraph obviously sets out the transactions underlying these costs. It's highlighted that paragraphs 11 and 12, both the Transformational Change Fund and the Workforce Development Fund balances are now fully committed against approved projects, and as well as non-recurring contribution towards Financial Recovery Plan 2 in 2024-25 and the non-recurring contribution to the National Balanced Budget Proposal for 2025-26, and as well as Transformational Change Fund balances and committed balances within the IGIB reserve have always been fully utilised as at the 31st of March this year, and these balances within the IGIB reserve have previously allowed the IGIB greater flexibility to manage cost pressures, demand fluctuation and phasing of savings, and to support financial planning and deliver savings over the medium to longer term. Audit Scotland, the IGIB's external auditors in their annual audit report 2024-25 to the IGIB in 24th of September note that medium-term financial sustainability is at risk from pressures on IGIB services and have highlighted the absence of uncommitted balances and fully committed earmark balances as particular areas of risk within the report. It's however worth highlighting that the partnership has been allocated funding from East Ayrshire Council's Innovation Fund to take forward technology-enabled care and care at home total mobile management systems initiatives, both of which are designed to deliver efficiencies at a time of increasing demand for services. So examples of the projects approved by the Commissioning Board, as well as the best value service reviews, are set out at paragraphs 14 to 36 of the report. And as I highlighted previously, operational lead officers have been assigned responsibility for delivery of these projects and for progress reporting back to the Commissioning Board. So if there's any questions around the projects described in this section, I'll do my best to answer, but I may need to refer specific queries back to the operational lead and provide feedback on this. So to conclude the report, the recommendations are as set out at paragraph 2. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll open up to members. Any comments, questions? Councillor Sangster, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Referring to the table on page 134 about this liquid logic, I seem to recall from previous meetings that this is something that's been in place for quite some time. I'm not sure how long, maybe 3-4 years. I mean, should the implementation and development not already be in place? Because when you look at then page 136 on the table, you've got an expenditure of 134 or over 134,000. And then when you go to page 137, we've got another over 55. So that's over 185,000 on a system that's potentially already been in use. That just seems a wee bit excessive to me. I would like a wee bit more detail on that, please.
Through yourself, Chair, Liquid Logic has been implemented for maybe 3-4 years. It is a social work case management system, and this enables the IGIB and also the Council to fulfil its legal responsibilities in compliance with regulations in respect of case management, information sharing and financial management, and also we in finance use it via the contract finance module, which is an important mechanism to ensure control over committed expenditure in fairly fluid budget areas, including high-cost care packages. So it's a very important system, and that's reflected in the fact we've had to invest a bit more in terms of continuing implementation. We do have a Liquid Logic project board, which meets on a regular basis. I'm a member of that, as is obviously Craig MacArthur, Chief Officer. It has been quite an extensive implementation process. It is now bearing fruit in terms of the reports that it is producing. And I think that the investment we've made in it has been aligned to ensure that is happening, and we can fulfil the requirements that we have both legally and operationally to manage the report on the position and also manage the budget in relation to that.
Right, thank you for that answer. Councillor Sangster, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. I was just a bit confused as to why it's taking so long and why we're having to still invest money. But no, thanks for the clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Councillor Canning.
Thanks, Alex. Just a quick one. I mean, obviously, a care at home, obviously, strategically is really important. Obviously, you've got the it's called telemobile. It's been introduced. Can you guys give a flavour of how the savings, from travel time and time that was getting used up before? Can you give us a flavour of how that time has been used?
In terms of total mobile?
Sorry?
Total mobile, was it?
Yeah, obviously you're making a lot of savings in travel time. How is that time being used, and what's the impact of those savings?
Yeah, we do monitor the care at home budget very closely. Total mobile has reduced, has led to a fairly significant reduction in downtime, including travel time. So effectively, the simple answer to that is it's been reinvested in frontline services. It allows carers to basically spend more time at the coal face and providing the services that that we're looking to provide, and that's obviously reflected in the fact that we've got a lot of delayed discharges and so on, but we're able to keep people out of hospital for much longer, so there is a payback in terms of that. We do monitor the care at home budget very closely as one of the areas of significant budget pressure at this point in time, but we are starting to see real gains from the total mobile system, particularly in relation to downtime, which is allowing us to focus more closely on the really essential elements of the service.
What about overtime? Is it saving in?
It's I think the difficulty in terms of overtime, it's difficult to really relate total mobile to the overtime problem. A lot of the overtime costs are driven by staff sickness, and in reality there is a fairly high sickness level within the care at home sector. It's in excess of 10% at the minute. There is a lot of work ongoing to try and reduce that, but that is the main driver of overtime costs, as being able to cover hours when people are actually off site. It's not like other services where we can make do for a couple of days until people return to work. We've got to, obviously, in terms of continuity of care, we've got to put carers in there to continue to provide services to the clients who have been assessed as requiring those services.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Canning, and for the reply, Alec. Councillor Richardson online got a question or a comment.
Thanks, Chair. It's just, I don't know if the two are linked or not, but on page 134, I think it's about 7 or 8 down, the Innovation Programme Lead. An update was provided to the Strategic Commissioning Board on the Innovation Programme Lead. This post has now come to an end, and with the Innovation Programme work now been taken forward by the relevant leads. So obviously there's a lot of recommendations came in, mostly around, you know, the use of new digital technologies, as Councillor Canning's just said, you know, to free up time, hopefully by using more digital technology, maybe to be able to see more patients, more clients. But then I'm just wondering if these two are linked, because 5 down in page 135, it says update provided on the additional staffing capacity to lead in procurement and implementation of digital scheduling and monitoring system and delivering collaborative approaches to commissioning care at home services. Recruitment not yet complete. So I'm just a wee bit concerned that we did a lot of work, you know, employed an innovation programme lead who came up with a lot of good recommendations. We obviously, a lot of those recommendations we want to put in place, but it seems as if we possibly haven't recruited the manager that's going to oversee some of that and actually get it embedded and implemented. Is that right, or am I reading too much into those 2 points?
The Innovation Programme lead was a fixed term post for 2 years, and that came to an end, and obviously there was an assessment of the effectiveness of that report, and I think it was found that I think a lot of the Innovation Programme was being taken forward by the services themselves, so that's reflected in the revised model that we've now got there. I would need to come back to you on the particular post that's referred to there, because it's not really my area of knowledge in terms of that. I'm not quite sure what post that actually refers to, so I can come back to you on that and give you an update in terms of what particular post that is. But what I would say about the Innovation Programme in general is it's now being taken forward, as I say, at head of service level, and obviously we do a lot of work around that through the commissioning board. Obviously the lack of funding is going to be a limiting factor in terms of the transformational change funding, but as I said earlier, there are innovation pots available within the council which we've been able to successfully tap into to take forward initiatives such as technology enabled care and obviously the implementation of the total mobile solution. But these are primarily going to be decisions in terms of the way forward for the respective heads of service.
Okay, I mean that's great. I just wondered myself when reading all the different points. I wondered if those 2 points were linked. They may not be linked at all. It might be a post that's you know, that's looking at something a wee bit different. But I just thought I would ask the question.
No problem. Thank you, Councillor Richardson and Alex, for the answer. I had one as Holly Health Behavioural App. It's the third one down, page 135. I've never heard of that before. Could you tell us a wee bit about it? Or if you're not sure, could you email out a wee bit about it to the members of the committee?
No, I can give you an update on that one. There was actually a presentation fairly recently to our IGIB on that. It's a digital health and wellbeing coaching system to support patients and the public. Understanding is that it includes kind of daily coaching to help users in reducing stress and anxiety and dietary issues. That's the behavioural change app part of it. The Holly Health app itself is a management tool which we actually run it as a kind of test a change program, and it allows people to pretty much self-manage their conditions. It was put forward as a proposal by Dr. Alexia Appello, who's the clinical director for the IGIB, and it was funded through this for the first year through under a test a change, looking at particular areas of the primary care budget in health. The good news is that we've stopped funding that, but they've managed to tap into innovation funding from the Scottish Government to continue that, and there's access is available to that up within the NHS Ayrshire website. And my understanding is it has been fairly widely used, obviously for people to better self-manage conditions, to allow GPs more time to focus probably on the more important issues in terms of triaging patients through the system.
So that has been quite successful, and they're going to try and keep it going.
My understanding is, yeah, it's been proved to be successful, and as a result of that, it's now been funded. The Scottish Government have agreed to provide funding through their own innovation fund to support that.
Just advise, Chair, that there was actually, all members should have in their inbox in the course of this meeting an email from a colleague, it's Jordan Wilson was his name, launching the app to all staff, and councillors were included as well. So you wouldn't have seen that because you're engaged with this meeting, but it's actually get out in terms of the launch this morning by sheer magical coincidence.
Thank you, David. Anyone else, any other comments or questions? Not seen nothing online. We'll go back then, we'll wrap this one up. We'll go back to page 133, paragraph 2 is the recommendations. And it's note and comment the update and progress made, the financial recovery plan, otherwise no contents of the report. Happy with that, elected members? Thank you very much. That ends item 9, the agenda. We're moving on to item 10, which is the internal audit 24-25 supplementary annual report, quality assurance and improvement programme. And we've got Ailey Mackay. Thank you, Ailey.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Short report from us. I'll just note some of the key highlights, and then, as always, take any questions that may arise. You'll recall on the 24th of April, we brought up the first annual report for 24-25. Both of these annual reports are professional and regulatory requirements for the Council to produce. The first annual report is the speedy one that we have to do to give an annual opinion for the Council. And you'll recall that continued to be reasonable assurance across the body of the work that we had carried out in 24-25. So this report is another aspect of our annual reporting, the second aspect, which is the very snappily titled Quality Assurance and Improvement Programme, known as the QAIP. Not my title, that's our professional and statutory requirement to produce a QAIP. So we try and make it as useful as possible for committee to give you a wee update on where we are in terms of our performance, and actually touching on the wider performance of the Council in terms of the outcomes of our work. The meat and the bones in terms of the body of the report is from paragraph 7 to paragraph 17, and I was just going to touch on a very small number of those paragraphs.
Paragraph 11 refers to performance indicators, which are laid out in detail in the appendices. And one of the performance indicators, and I know one that committee are always interested in, is where we are at any point in terms of our staffing. Pleased to say that after some quite extensive recruitment processes this year, we now have a preferred candidate who we are concluding pre-employment checks along with our HR colleagues, and that's moving very speedily. So I'm hoping when we're back up in front of you in December, on the 4th of December, we're able to introduce you to our new candidate, our new senior auditor, which is fabulous. They're very thin on the ground out there, not just nationally, but internationally. We're actually getting this chap's joining us from a company in Scotland, and we're very excited to have them on board. So hopefully that all goes to plan. We're a small team, you know that. We try and be robust, we try and be resilient. It's always a challenge, but we're not alone in that. Across Scotland, all chief auditors have this challenge. We've managed to sustain the members of our team over quite a long number of years. People tend to stay here when they come here. We have a few people that leave, go on, but they always go on to promoted posts elsewhere. I sometimes think we're an incubator unit for internal audit across Scotland. Maybe that's no bad thing. So we are where we are. It was recognised a bit more formally last year that internal audit recruitment is becoming even more challenging, but we know that's an issue across public sector, across a number of professions, and our Scottish Local Authorities Chief Internal Auditor Group set up a subgroup to look at resourcing solutions. I think we're hopefully trying to identify. We have identified a few areas of good practice so far. I'm on that committee. Currently there's 4 councils who lead that committee, so I am one of the council representatives on that committee. So there's 4 chief auditors from across city councils, other councils about the same size as us. So we're doing some good work around there to also share our working papers and to try and share experience as effectively as we can. So if I move down, paragraph 14 talks about another performance indicator that's presented in Appendix 2, and that's around our follow-up work. So as you know, every single internal audit report we produce, we do follow-up, and we then go out and we test all the recommendations that we make to services. I don't accept anything below 100%. And services know that, and they are very good at engaging with us and very good at implementing our recommendations. I think I've said before that is becoming increasingly difficult with the pressures on all services, but we're still achieving as a council 100% implementation of our continuous improvement recommendations. And that continues to be the case. And those arrangements, although we're moving to new professional standards, the Global Internal Audit Standards, we've moved to those from 1st of April this year, the arrangements for our work generally are not changing. We have to use new language and we've got some new obligations, but fundamentally the way we work, including the follow-up work that we do in this council, will not change. The Appendix 3 actually lists all of the follow-up exercises that we've carried out and the scores for each specific exercise. And as you know, members, all of those reports are on your councillor's notice board, and there's that link just below paragraph 15 to take you to that councillor's notice board. And I know you're well aware that our initial reports are on that notice board and all the follow-up reports. So, and we're always happy to see you at our door if you've got any further questions on those reports. And I was just going to mention, I was interested in the question earlier about liquid logic, and we, as soon as that system was implemented in health and social care, we audited it and we were involved in advising on the development of that system. And as Alec mentioned earlier, the parallel system Controc, which is the business the business bit that supports liquid logic, because as you know, liquid logic is the case management system. So the report that we produced on the controls is available under your 2022-23 listings on your councillor's notice board, and the follow-up report is in the 23-24 listings. And that follow-up report, I got Paul to double check there while you were talking about it, it's 100% implementation of the 4 recommendations that we made. So there's also continuous improvement with any of the systems in the council, and that would include any of the recommendations that we make. So the other paragraph I was going to mention quickly is paragraph 17, that takes you refers to the new professional standards, our global internal audit standards. You know my views on those. There's some further information set out in Appendix 4A and 4B, and we will support committee through the obligations of those global internal audit standards as we work through this year and future years. There are some new requirements for this quality assurance and improvement programme. So this report, you will still get this type of report annually, but it will look different going forward, and we're just trying to sort out at the moment how that can be best presented to be the best possible useful information for committee. So that concludes everything that I was going to say on the content of the report. So we're back at section 2 on the recommendations. So we've got 5 recommendations, 4 for noting. Recommendation number 2 is the well-established annual question that asks committee if you have any comments on the way in which we report to committee and the way in which we present our detailed reports within your councillor's notice board. So our QAIP has an annual trigger for committee to consider whether you continue to be satisfied with those arrangements, and we're always happy to take constructive criticism. So doors open there. So Chair, that's the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellie. It's an excellent report, because I can tell because it's the red, amber, green and everything's green, which gives us problems trying to find questions because there's no reds to answer questions on. Elected members, any questions or comments? Councillor Canning.
Excellent. Chair, thanks, Ellen. I was going to say there, question's gone from my head now. So are you going to be here for the duration, or are you leaving after this report?
Sorry?
Are you going to be here for the duration?
Yes.
You'll be here for the duration?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. I've got asked a question for you on the procurement report. I just wanted to make sure that you're.
Oh, right. Okay, no problem. Yeah, I'll be here until the end.
I've got nothing on that report. Yeah,
okay.
Thanks.
Right, thank you. Page 157, Ailey, table 3. I just noted down at number 10, you no longer have number of outsourced computer days is down to 1, and with 20 or 30 days of computer auditing, which you've outsourced. Is that a problem you solved and you don't need to outsource computer auditing now?
No, we do. We absolutely do. And it's always been a hybrid model that we've practiced in the team. And as we've trained our staff to be more skilled in the computer audit side of things, which tends not to be something you do much of when you do your accountancy training, which obviously auditors come from an accountancy background. We have been working on those qualifications with the team over a number of years, but I don't think we'll ever get to a place where we don't want to bring in the computer audit experts, at the very least, to work with us, and that's the model that we've had in the team. They've worked with us. 24-25 was a year where that was more, the work comes in peaks and troughs, and in 24-25 we had less work in the plan. So the plan that was approved by committee had less computer audit work in it, and that's indicative of the 1 day. But we do have more resilience in the team now to do in-house computer audit. It's also a financial issue, they're not cheap. So we don't, I'm very mean in what I give them in terms of any annual payments, and we squeeze as much as we can out of them. I think we got an awful lot of work out of them for that 1 day we paid for.
And page 159, excuse me. Appendix 3, there's some of the different items and pieces of what you're rescheduling, that they're coloured blue. It's for all sorts of different reasons. You're rescheduling into next year And not a concern, not something you're worried about?
Absolutely not. This happens every year and we're very transparent about it. We usually, the default is to schedule the follow-up a year after the original assignment report comes out. But when I prepare the plan to come up at the beginning of the year to be approved by committee, quite often those original audit reports are not yet cleared with services. So I have to assume that we're going to finish the work and clear the original report with the services and the recommendations so that we can do the follow-up in the year in which you are agreeing the plan for. And quite often, through a number of reasons, and nothing that's there's no pattern of concern here, but quite often when we agree with the service the final recommendations and we look at the best way in which to implement that and the timetable in which to implement that, and particularly when we have a council that's looking at constantly looking at continuous improvement, different ways of working, having to apply significant levels of cuts, that lead-in time for applying our recommendations might be later than maybe we had originally envisaged. And quite often that's to ensure that we are going into the latest and most current version of controls, which might be after a restructure, so that we can apply the principle of the recommendation to the current way of working in that year. So we do them later and later and later. And sometimes those follow-ups then go into the year after, which is why they're rescheduled. So it's to get the most effective use of our time. But what you don't see in this report, although I think we refer to it certainly in the narrative in some of our reports, that doesn't mean we're not working with the services, because the minute our reports go out, from the minute our reports go out to the minute we finalise a follow-up report, which can be 2-3 years, we are on it with the services. And we are providing advice, we're talking to them on a regular basis. So, we don't parachute in, a couple of times over 2 or 3 years. We're there to support our colleagues. So rescheduling, yes, and I would rather do that, and I'd rather default that we'll do the follow-ups within a year and then explain to committee where we need to reschedule. So great. I hope that answers.
Thank you very much. Chair. Yeah, it does so. Yep. I'll let the members know other questions. No one online. Okay, we've got the recommendations, which Ailey has already mentioned. Page 142. Paragraph 2. The second one down. Consider we continue to be satisfied with the current internal audit reporting arrangements. We are satisfied with those arrangements, elected members, and we note the rest of the contents of the report. Thank you. We'll close that one. The agenda. We're on to item 11 in the agenda, which is also an audit report. It's IJB Internal Audit Annual Assurance Update, and this one we go to Paul Davis, please. Paul Davies.
Thank you, Chair. This is another short report. So this established report provides for noting an annual assurance update to committee on the most recent IJB Internal Audit Annual Report for 2024-25 and the IJB Internal Audit Plan for 25-26. I'll take the report as read, and there are just a few key paragraphs which I'd like to highlight. Paragraph 14 notes that this annual report was presented to the IJB Audit and Performance Committee on the 5th of August, and a link to that report is provided there. Paragraph 15 notes the continuing annual opinion of reasonable assurance, though we have highlighted that the Chief Internal Auditor recognises the national ongoing financial challenges for IJBs, as reflected in the 2 Accounts Commission's reports noted, with the latter report highlighting the complex landscape, unprecedented pressures, challenges and uncertainties with a widening health inequality gap, an increased demand for services, and a growing level of unmet and more complex needs. An equivalent report to this will be presented by us to the NHS Ayrshire and Arran Audit and Risk Committee on the 20th of November. Paragraph 18 notes that the IGIB internal audit plan was approved by the Audit and Performance Committee on the 27th of May. IGIB plans are treated as live to allow us to respond to emerging risks. And this year our work is focusing on supporting the financial recovery plans. Appendix 2 of the report notes all audit plans since the inception of the IGIB. Paragraph 2 lists the 5 recommendations, all of which are for noting, and I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you very much, Paul. Elected members, have we any comments or questions on this report? Oh, is Paul getting off light here? No comments, no questions. Page 164 is your recommendations.
Chair, sorry, could I come in with a question?
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Richardson.
Thanks, Councillor Maben. It's just page 166 and then the paragraph 15 that we just went through together there. It is causing me some concern, that paragraph especially, with what we're seeing with the IGIB and the council having to come in each year with considerable funds to balance the books, as it were. It's just that paragraph 15, just to me, how can I put this? It seems to be a bit of a kind of get out of jail clause where the IGIB at the end of each financial year can come back to East Ayrshire Council and say, unfortunately, guys, we need another 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever million to balance the books. And I'm just wondering, could I ask the question? I know that ongoing works are going on within the IGIB to bring things back under control, but how confident are the auditors that at the end of each financial year, the figure that East Ayrshire Council's been asked for to balance the books isn't going to be continually increasing? That was the question.
Paul, O'Reilly.
I would say, Councillor Richardson, it's a good question, but we are internal audit, and my statutory requirement, which reflects in the language here, is to look at the organisation's framework of governance, risk management and control. I'm trying to put that in a context of the challenges that actually all IGIBs are facing, but the responsibility and most of the work to resolve the financial certainly isn't being led by internal audit. We will certainly support where we can, but my colleagues in finance and in both the council and the IGIB are probably better placed to answer that question, Chair.
And we have a finance officer here, Colin.
Thanks, Chair. Just to obviously kind of recognise this sort of ongoing position and just sort of kind of pick up on that work is ongoing, and that the Council's Chief Financial Officer is working closely with the Director of Health and Social Care to sort of recognise, and it is a national position in relation to the ongoing funding challenges that remain in relation to the Health and Social Care Partnership. The recovery plans are obviously developed as part of the sort of integrated joint board to essentially bring service back online, but there has to be recognition that that is incredibly challenging for the Health and Social Care Partnership and their provision, and for the integrated joint board and their oversight. That said, the financial challenges are there. They are difficult for everyone, and as such, as previously earlier in the year, there were the council members gave a requirement for the IGIB to come back with a direction to the council in relation to some of the decisions that will have to be made, recognising that in the last couple of years there has had to be essentially funding directed back in to support the social care position in East Ayrshire, and that that position going forward is something that needs to be balanced on a sort of more recurring basis. So that direction will come back. It is likely that there will be choices made to members and as to what level of service provision can be made and can continue to be made, or whether additional funding is going to be required to be put in, and members will be presented with that option going forward. But it's just to recognise that both officers in the council side and on the integrated joint board are working together to essentially address that challenge.
Thank you, Colin. And we've got a wee bit more from Alex McPhee, Finance Officer for the Health and Social Care Partnership.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just in terms of the original query around paragraph 15, in terms of the audit opinion, reasonable assurance, but obviously Paul has highlighted in his presentation that it's been recognised that the national ongoing financial challenges are a challenge, not only locally, but right across Scotland, and that's been laid out in a number of Audit Scotland reports over the last couple of years in terms of the unprecedented pressures, challenges and uncertainties. And this key message is consistent with what the external auditors have actually said in their audit report, which was signed off by the IGIB on the 24th of September this year, in terms of the annual audit report for 2024-25. And Fiona Mitchell-Knight from Audit Scotland at the meeting actually highlighted that financial sustainability is the key issue affecting all IGIBs. And she was almost certain that all 31 IGIB's annual audit reports would be setting out the same sort of risk here and highlighting financial sustainability as the key financial pressure going forward. This has also been discussed at the National Chief Officers, IGIB Chief Finance Officers groups that I'm attending and pretty much on a couple of 6-weekly basis. In terms of the actions that we're actually taking within the IGIB, we have a dedicated audit and performance committee purely dedicated to the financial recovery plan. We're doing very detailed reports. They're being closely scrutinised by elected members who are members of the audit and performance committee, who are also elected members of the council, and also NHS non-exec directors who sit in the audit and performance committee. The most recent meeting was yesterday afternoon. Paul from internal audit is also present on that meeting, and I think he would agree it's a fairly robust meeting in terms of the sort of scrutiny that they were actually under. We don't underestimate the challenges, but it's important, I think, to highlight as well that the recent Audit Scotland report right at the start of the year, when the budgets were actually being collated for the 31 IGIBs, and there was an indicative budget gap at that point in time of some £497.5 million identified through the Chief Finance Officers Group. So we were included within that figure at 15.217 million. That's the exact figure. That included baseline budget pressure from rolled forward from 24-25, and it included a number of pressures in the new financial year, including payroll pressures, employers' national insurance and so on, that we've had to fund through additional savings. The financial recovery plan is designed to get to financial balance, taking into consideration the need to fund all these things through additional savings. But the difficulty is that there is significant increase in demand for health and social care services right across Scotland. That's in older people's services, adult services and children's services. And these are the sorts of things that are laid out within these detailed reports to the dedicated audit and performance committee and to the IGIB itself. So there is an awareness there. Just to give you some context as well, a report that just came out this week, I basically collate information on a quarterly basis for the Scottish Government on the projected outturn position and the main pressures impacting on the IGIB, and that the other 30 Chief Finance Officers in Scotland do the same. With the absence of two non-returns from areas where I know from press reports that they're having significant difficulties, there is a pressure in the region of £130 million. So effectively, that highlights that that's a residual pressure. So that takes into account the movement from the 497.5 million down to where we're currently at in Q1. But that's on the basis of certain financial recovery plan savings being achieved at a time of increasing demand. So it is a real real challenge right across Scotland. But I think members can be assured, I know members can be assured that we are taking steps to address that as far as we possibly can, to minimise the impact on both partner bodies. The Health Board, like the Council, are also required to underwrite the overspend in 2024-25, albeit to a much reduced sum to the Council. One of the problems that has been picked up by the external auditors is the absence of uncommitted balances, and I referred to that within my own presentation. We're now sitting with absolutely nothing in the rainy day fund. So in 23-24, when we overspent, we were able to absorb that overspend through non-recurring funds. Once that funding was drawn down, and we used some of it also to set an initial balanced budget for 24-25, the kitty was effectively bare, for it to use a technical term. So the difficulty now is we've not got the flexibility, nor have we got the funds to underwrite significant budget challenges. So we're into the real challenge now of getting the budget to balance on a recurring basis, and recognising that additional demand is going to continue to come in and impact on the services. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for that very, very detailed response. I was taking notes. There's lots of good information in there. So thanks for that response.
A lot of detail. Thank you, Alex and Colin. And Paul and Ailey.
I was just in a final note there, and maybe I should have drawn a wee bit more attention to this when I gave my brief initial response, but I think that goes to highlight the different roles of internal audit and external audit, that although we're accountants, we are not signing off the accounts. That's external audit's job. So our job is to look at the framework of assurance to provide committee with assurance on the internal controls, the government and risk management in the council. But obviously we look at that in the context, which is why I had written about the context in which the IJBs work in, and that had been lifted from the Accounts Commission work. So we felt that was appropriate to put our annual opinion for the IJB in that context. So I absolutely don't see that as being a get out of jail card. Absolutely not. Which is also why we have directed our IJB work for the last couple of years to reviewing and monitoring how effective the management of the financial recovery plans is. Now, that's very different to achieving your financial recovery plan, which is sitting with my colleagues from finance and the IJB. So that was, I think, a useful discussion, but hopefully it also reinforces that where my responsibilities start and end and where external audits responsibilities start and end. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. David.
Absolutely not to prolong things, but very, very briefly, as monitoring officer from a governance perspective, I think what members are clearly hearing and hear, and every time this conversation comes up, is the factors that contribute to the financial challenges that every council faces through its health and social care partnership arrangement. There are many, many factors that contribute to that. I think members should take assurance, however, that one factor that doesn't contribute to that is any weakness or deficiency in either the governance arrangements, the decision-making arrangements through the IJB, or the financial stewardship. The partnership is that, a partnership. The council puts money in, the health board put money in, and members should take comfort from the fact that the financial stewardship of the council's funds within the partnership is conducted by the same colleagues such as Joe, Colin and others, Alec, McPhee, to the same standard as they manage the rest of the council's budget. So there are many causes, but it's not about the decisions they're taking or the weakness or any weakness in the governance arrangements. The arrangements are robust. It is. You'd be surprised to know I'm not a runner, but if I was, this seems akin to run a marathon every day to stand still in terms of managing the budget. Because if you didn't run that marathon, it'd be an even worse position, and that's the consistent message. Without being either negative or defeatist, everyone is doing as much as they can within their own roles. Having said that, the challenges are large, at risk of stating the obvious, but members should be assured that the governance arrangements are robust.
Thank you very much. No more questions? And online? Okay, we'll go back to the recommendations, please. Elected members on page 164. Paragraph 2, there's 5 recommendations there. They're mostly not in the contents of the report and the annual opinion. And that this equivalent IJB report also goes to NHS or NARN's Audit and Risk Committee as well. We're happy with that, elected members? Thank you. We'll close that. That was item 11 in the agenda. Item 12 is the last one. It's the annual procurement report, April 24 to March 25. And we go to Leslie McLean, Procurement Manager.
I'll just briefly introduce it, Chair, and hand it over. Just to set the context, and as is set out in the covering paper, members will be familiar, the procurement regulations and the Procurement Reform Scotland Act require councils as public contracting authorities to undertake at least 2 bits of work every year. The first one is our annual procurement strategy, in terms of setting out how the council is going to conduct its procurement activity in each financial year, and we take that to Cabinet around about March, April time for approval in advance of the relevant year. This paper to G&S is the yin to the yang. This paper is the report on our performance against last year's plan, if you like. I know from regular attendance here, members sometimes get frustrated with the timing of these things, but just to explain that we can't bring this any earlier than round about now, because we rely on Scottish Government and Spikes Cavell to provide the spend information, and we don't often receive that till August, September. I think it was in maybe October this year. There was a wee delay. So we do bring this as best we can, but it is a look back, and it complements, as I say, Cabinet's approval of the current year's plan. So we're always playing catch up, if you like. This report feeds into a Scottish Government national report on public procurement generally, so it has its place in the national firmament. And again, I'll leave Leslie something to address you on, but all I would say is as we set out in paragraph 3, there is prescribed content, the things what the report needs to cover, and then at para 4.1 we also set out some of the other areas that we like to include information on in order to demonstrate how we're going about it and trying in some areas to maximise the benefits of all that significant level of public spend for our communities and for our services. Finally, I would just ask members to bear with us. My colleague here, Leslie, you'll all know, our procurement manager is just as committed, as enthusiastic as every other colleague you've had in the chamber today presenting their papers. So I'm conscious it's been a long day, but procurement is an important function. We only come and take your time once a year, and I'll now with that hand over to Leslie to take you into a slightly deeper dive into how the procurement, the small but well-performing procurement team keep themselves busy year on year. Thanks, Leslie.
Thanks for that introduction, David, and good afternoon, Chair and members. As David says, I'm here to present the annual procurement report for 24-25. I'm not going to dwell on the sort of regulatory functions, as David's already explained that. It is a regular report, and as a minimum, we are required to report on specific matters, and I'll now provide you with an overview, so I'll just talk through that report just now. So if I turn to page 190, this provides a summary of all of the regulated procurement projects which the team have undertaken and completed during the reporting period. Table 1 notes that we have conducted 74 regulated procurements, and the team have actually delivered 143 projects within the reporting period, some of them being under the regulated procurement threshold, many of them actually being capital works projects. If I now take you to page 191, you'll also note that we've also issued and subsequently awarded 298 low-value quick quotes. They're across all council service departments, from education, Ayrshire Roads Alliance, Health and Social Care Partnership, to name a few. Going to page 192 to 195, we set out how our procurement activity is undertaken in compliance with the legislation. You will note from previous reports, we do observe a number of general duties to fulfil the regulatory obligations, and we've provided a high-level summary for you today. This includes promoting payment of the living wage, inclusion of sustainability and community benefits within our contracts, as well as developing wider-ranging commodity strategies, market research, to name a few. Taking you to page 196 to 201, We've provided a summary of the community benefits which have been reported by our contract administrators across the various contracts which they manage on behalf of the Council. Members will be aware that we launched the Cost of Living initiative last year. That has been hugely successful. We've done that in collaboration with colleagues within facilities and property management. Our contracted suppliers were invited to participate in this, and what you're seeing there is the list of the donations for cooking equipment and the food vouchers which were received through our contracted suppliers, and these have now all been distributed through identified community food larders. I know that some of you were invited to participate in the photo opportunity out in the car park earlier on this year. It's been a huge success, follows on from the success of our previous defibrillator initiative. And you will note that actually we've probably donations in terms of the defib in excess of £150,000. So these targeted initiatives and focused initiatives do have a huge impact across our wider communities, and it's something that we would welcome the opportunity to speak to you further about, to come up with a pipeline of what a future rollout might look like. But I'd like to speak to you wider about that, just to see how we probably manage that, whether it's employment opportunities, supporting men's sheds. There's a whole array of support functions we can put in, but we'd like your feedback to deliver that. Some of the other community benefits delivered across the portfolio include employment opportunities, volunteering, work opportunities. So that list is there for you to see. Again, we can only report what the contract administrators put in front of us. I'm hoping later on this year, going into next year, I will be developing our new contract register and management platform. And hopefully this will become a lot more automated, and we can send alerts just to make sure that we are capturing those contractual commitments. So then we can actually report fully the breadth and width of all the benefits that we do get. If I now turn you to page 202, this provides a summary of the steps taken to facilitate the involvement of our supported businesses across the council. You'll note that the spend during the period is just shy of £800,000, and that's just with 4 supported businesses. That is an increase in the spend from the previous reporting period of £158,000, and it's a clear and positive indicator and highlights our strategic focus on inclusive and sustainable growth. Turning to page 203, we've also provided a link to our future regulated pipeline of procurement activity. That information is publicly available on the Council's website, and our local suppliers and multinational contractors do get access to that information. If I now take you to page 205 to 207, this details our spend profile. This delivers a breakdown of our spend with our local Ayrshire registered businesses. Unfortunately, this year we've actually seen a downturn, circa £5.8 million, which is quite significant locally. I have undertaken some data analysis, and that shows that the majority of this downturn, £4.6 million to be precise, is across 3 local service providers. The Energy Agency being one of them, we're down £1.8 million. Hill House Quarry, who are one of our big roads resurfacing contractors, £1.3 million, and our contracts with NHS, Ayrshire and Arran are down £1.5 million. There could be various factors that attribute to that downturn. It could be that the grant funding provided by government for the Energy Agency had been cut. The road resurfacing programme, I know that the head of Ayrshire Roads Alliance put up a variance report into the Ayrshire performance just, I think, the last period in terms of the percentage of the road resurfacing programme that had been delivered. Again, factors impacting on that. And NHS, Ayrshire and Arran, we've all been asked to obviously look at the budgets, the health and social care service reviews that's been ongoing. So there's different things that are at play here. But I do have the high level breakdown of the spend for 24-25 and 23-24, and I'd be happy to upload that into the members area and get some further detail about that if that's something that you think would be helpful. I've also provided our 3-year trend in contracted and non-contracted spend, and again that seems quite steady, so that's where we're on a par with most of our sort of counterparts in terms of sitting at that 95-96%. and we've given a cash savings benefit overview as well. And finally attached, we've got the appendices at page 292.43, and again that provides information in relation to the contracts which we've awarded and our pipeline of projects which are currently being progressed over the next year to 2 years. And that concludes my report, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Elected members, have any questions or comments? Councillor Todd and then Councillor Canning.
Thanks very much, Convener. Thank you very much. That's a really in-depth report. It's amazing to see how much money gets put out in terms of our services. So page 217, there's a framework agreement for care at home housing support service. I mean, that's an awful lot of money that we procure, and these guys and lasses do a great job. In terms of the national insurance contributions hike, I know that we got some money for Westminster for local authorities, for local authority employees. I don't think it was enough, but anyway, in terms of that money that comes in, is this going to continue on a yearly basis in terms of that uptake to pay for the national insurance contributions for us? And what is the and what is the impact if that doesn't happen? And what is the impact for, you've got Constance Care there. These are outside providers and they're not getting this uptake. So what's been the pressure on the finances for us as a council relating to that? Thank you.
Well, sure, we can answer the wider one as an employer. I mean, I'm sorry to land in Colin, but he may be able to give you that. All we'll be able to advise is whether or not we have had notification for any providers that the impact on them is such they're ceasing to trade, and I don't believe we've lost any providers. The rest of it, I can't offer any more than what you've probably read yourself in the media in terms of some of the speculation when it was brought in, what the impacts would be, and a lot of businesses did their own quantification of that, etc., etc. There's a business, I won't go into detail in public session, but I know there's a business that's involved in bakeries and stuff like that that's looking to move into Muirfield, and when they did their exercise, the additional cost to them was over £1 million a year in additional contributions. So the impact on us as an employer is significant. We did get some funding, as you say, without straying into the politics of that. It wasn't necessarily there for private employers, and yeah, it's just another challenge for those providing services. We try and take account of the overall viability, etc., of say, and look at financial standing when we award contracts to try and minimise the risk that we lose a supplier in the middle of a contract because they don't make it to the end for other reasons based impacting in the business. But there's no guarantees that you start a contract with somebody and they will be in business at the end of it. But at the moment, we've had no indication that anyone is actually having to withdraw from that sector as a result of that impact. But I suppose anything's possible. And again, you'll hear from, I'm going to say Donald McCaskill, but he might be the weatherman, but the chair of the Chief Executive of the Scottish Care Association, and he will articulate better than the rest of us put together just what the impacts are, all the financial pressures on them as employers, and that's just but one. But I don't know if there's anything to add, having invited Colin in, or if that would address it. But the short answer is, as yet, we haven't lost any suppliers attributing the reasoning to that or anything else.
Thanks. Just to add to that, just as David said, there was, as an employer herself, it was a significant increase in terms of the impact of the costs of national insurance contributions, for which I think it was about 60% of the funding we received. But you're absolutely right, that funding was for to support the council employees. There obviously always was, and it's been reported nationally, that the significant impact that David's that sort of kind of mentioned in relation to individual employers. So anyone that obviously we contract with is going to have that similar difficulty. So you've kind of got the two-sided coin. We've got less money in which to contract, and that sort of kind of refers to some of maybe the sort of reductions in areas such as sort of roads and that where services have less budget to work with, which means they have to manage that contract, in which we can afford to. But equally in terms of the contractors and their own prices and their own abilities to actually staff as they previously did. I know a number of businesses, the choices have been there for them that in order to support it, they've had to look at their staffing complements, and that means about the level of service that they're actually able to provide. But obviously that's a sort of general picture across the board, but just to sort of obviously reconfirm that the position will obviously affect all our businesses and those that we contract with as well.
Thank you. Councillor Canning.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Leslie, for the report. Just on the community benefits, I think we all know that, there's a huge amount of work goes into getting to agreeing these community benefits, and obviously going back to earlier themes about getting things into the community. I think they're worth an awful lot more than some people might think in terms of a minimum on ward. We're trying to put a quiet road network in, and hopefully we're going to get money for feasibility studies, which is the kind of the starting point. I think you kind of answered the question in terms of monitoring and making sure. It'd be a shame if we didn't get these community benefits, and particularly with the stresses on services and stuff. You alluded to the fact that you're putting in some systems to kind of make that better. I suppose my question, as I alluded to earlier, was to Ellie. Is this within your audit universe? Was the question. So I don't have a question for Leslie specifically, because you've answered my question. So.
Yes, it's in the audit universe. And as you know from your own background, audit universe is everything. So yes, it would be in the audit universe. It doesn't mean we do work on it. Yes, exactly. So we have to, as you well know, we risk assess to apply our resources to the highest risk areas, and community benefit, the collation of information around that, or the monitoring or management of it. Leslie keeps me up to date. I think there's a well-trodden path between my office and Leslie's office in the council, and we catch up on a regular basis, because obviously for me it's not just procurement, it's spend. And we focus our work on administration of contracts by services and on non-contracted spend, which isn't a huge problem, but there's sometimes spend, and we monitor that. We monitor payment cards, for example, where people can go out with the normal procurement and purchasing process, and you've seen the reports there. You can see that in our plan. So I wouldn't anticipate reviewing the community benefits unless David or Leslie or members thought that it's never come up in terms of risk assessment so far, but I'm well aware of what Leslie and her team are doing around that area.
Okay, thanks.
Just to reinforce, Chair, it's part of the role of every contract as an appointed contract administrator in the client service. What we do as the core procurement team, and have done over the years, is provided and built in. There is a contract management system for the contract administrators to use, so they have the tools to do the job. Part of the benefit of bringing this report here is it reduces even further any risk of folk not doing their job, and there's solutions for that, and chasing up these benefits, because part of the point of reporting them here at the end of the year is to make sure we got them. So hopefully that gives some assurance at a practical level. But there's 450 contracts potentially in play at any one time. The report doesn't really. You need to read the appendices and look at the detail, because as you'll understand, well, it says 75 regulated procurements. That's tenders above the 50 grand for the quick quotes, the kind of lower step in the hierarchy. That's full-blown tenders. They may not take a lot of work. There may be something we've done before. There may be no new great innovation or challenges, and it can be fairly straightforward to prepare the tender and get it out. You might only get one or two bids, but its impacts and the ease with which you can evaluate and proceed to award. Equally, there are others, and the EV charging's just out to tender just now, and I can tell you that one took hundreds of hours of man and woman hours, just within legal, as well as ARA colleagues and in other councils, because we're doing it in partnership with North and South, as you would expect. But that one tender alone was literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of folk trying to develop that in line with what they're doing elsewhere. We don't sit and reinvent the wheel because there are other tenders going out in other parts of the country, and we've been looking at those and engaging with those authorities as well. But that one tender, as I say, now that's exceptional. I'm not saying they all include that amount of work, but you've got a procurement team of 10 officers, I think it's soon to be 11, and Leslie managing the tendering of all of these. And the split is we tender them, we try and get the best contracts we can get with the specifications we get and work with the clients. But after that, in the main, we will support those with any difficulties, both legal and procurement, in managing contracts. But we absolutely need to look to client services to manage their contract, and we do everything we can to support and encourage best practice. I'll finish with what I always do. A good contract is one that works for both parties, and you all get that. And it has to work, but how do you know it's working if you're not picking up the phone to the supplier or having a monthly meeting and saying, is it working for you? We wanted 3 deliveries a week, but actually, is that working? No, I could do it in 2, but we've just reduced the cost by agreement. But ongoing monitoring, that's a trite example, but it's an obvious example. And when we're all busy with the next specification and the next tender, those with those roles absolutely have a vital role to play to make sure we get the best out of a contract. That mission doesn't stop on the day we award it. That is the challenge every day. That contract's in play for up to 4 or more years. Thanks, Chair.
Alan Murphy.
Just to come back on a point from earlier, Councillor Todd asked the question, I think it was Constance Kerr referred to Councillor Todd, and I never get the chance to come in at that point in time. In the current financial year, the IGIB were allocated, or the council were directed to pass on living wage uplift funding to pass over to providers, obviously to allow the providers to uplift the Scottish living wage for care workers from £12 per hour to £12.60 per hour from April this year. That obviously was an increase of 4.5%. What the IGIB actually approved was an uplift of 4.91%. So that provided for within the cost of care calculator for the employer's national insurance uplift for care at home providers. Within the cost of care calculator, the overall rate is £23.08 per hour. That's made up of a number of different elements, including travel and so on. And that is a plan Ayrshire rate. We agree that across Ayrshire so that we're not competing with one another for providers to deliver the services. So the assurance is there that has been provided, and it's in the baseline budget obviously for 26-27. What we don't know at this point in time is whether the living wage funding is going to come across for the future financial year. So that's obviously really difficult to us. Just as an aside, the National Care Home contract, which is obviously a nationally agreed contract, was uplifted as well, and my understanding is that the providers accepted the uplift within that contained provision for the employer's national insurance increase within the National Care Home contract, as well as for the local arrangements for the care at home contracts.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Councillor McGregor online, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a couple of questions which I hope are relevant. Thanks very much for the report, Leslie. I was really pleased to see quite a number of references to progressive procurement, particularly with regard to community wealth building. And thanks for expanding on the use of local suppliers and contractors. That's an important update. I really just wondered how the council procurement team can continue to kind of progress this progressive approach to procurement, particularly building in ethical procurement policies. And I just wondered if there's any national frameworks in play that might come into play with that when you're trying to implement your own policies. Hopefully you can expand on that. And really just a wee additional question was if there's any procurement involvement update you can give us with regards to any proposals for the development of the former multi-storey site in Kilmarnock. Thank you very much.
Okay, happy to take your first question, Councillor McGregor, and I'll pass the second one over to David in a wee minute. In terms of your question there, sustainable and ethical procurement, we do follow the Scottish Government's sustainability toolkit. I know that you are a procurement professional in your own right, so you will be familiar with that sustainable framework that most public bodies across the Scottish public sector do use. We tend to use this actual sustainability tool. That's what it's called. There are various toolkits in there, but it's a questionnaire that we do when we're developing our commodity strategies for any procurement activity over £50,000 and £2 million for the works contracts. That we sit with our contract administrators and we take them through that toolkit. That's got various questions in there about carbon, about fleet, about how you're reducing mileage, it talks about food, depends on the commodity that you're buying. So the contract administrator actually has to complete that questionnaire. That gets reviewed by procurement. And when we're developing up the technical specifications to put out to tender, we're building those sort of carbon management plans into the documents. We're building the sustainability criteria into the documents, and that's obviously followed through in terms of the weightings, the methodology we're using to evaluate and to sub-evaluate contracts prior to award. So that is all built in and it is done at a national level. So we're all using the same toolkit, so the consistency and the standardisation is there. I hope that helps answer your question.
That's really great. Thanks very much, Leslie.
I think on the second point, we may not be able to be just as helpful. I think we need to distinguish between what the council's plans might be for the multi-storey car park site once cleared, and I think we're still at the stage of considering what that would look like. Obviously, once we've identified the way forward, there will be a role for procurement in delivering that solution, whatever that might look like, and whatever contractor works or whatever might be required. I don't probably know much more than members. I saw the last update from our colleagues to you all, just confirming in terms of the final timescale for the multi-storey, confirming that the taxi rank would go back to where it was before, at the back of the bus station, at the back of the bus station, front of the bus station, and that the temporary traffic rank that's been operating due to the closure of the original one during the works period has actually proven quite successful. So following a consultation, the proposal, which elicited no negative responses, there is a proposal to try and assist the trade and punters, members of the public, by retaining that temporary rank up in Portland Street just at night for any nighttime trade, etc. The trade asked that, and our colleagues took it on board, and are doing that as a pilot at least. And if it works, fine, that'll become permanent. If it doesn't, we'll regroup. But it's not always possible to support the trade and what their aspirations and ambitions would be, and what their ask would be. But where we can, we do try. So going back to the multi-storey, I think that briefing did also indicate it was back to the drawing board in terms of future plans for that. So I don't have any more information than members have, but obviously procurement will always play a role once they've identified the solution in terms of procuring, if it's a contractor to carry out works as an obvious example, and the wider legal and governance will input to that consideration as required. Cheers.
Thank you very much, David. We've Councillor Richardson online and then Councillor Canning in the room, and then we'll wrap it up. Councillor Richardson.
Thanks, Chair. This is what I like about governance and scrutiny. You get a lot of information that you didn't know as an elected member sitting in these meetings. No, it was interesting to hear the feedback there that when we're procuring services from third-party suppliers, we're actually paying a wee bit more to help the third-party suppliers meet things like the cost of living wage and the extra national insurance contributions. I mean, obviously, we all know that the extra national insurance contributions were fully funded by Westminster to English local authorities. But in Scotland, because, well, in Westminster's view, our public sector is larger per capita head. So basically, I think the shortfall was calculated at something like 200 million in Scotland spread across all the 32 local authorities. But now that I've heard that when we're procuring third-party services, and it's the right thing to do, we're trying to help the third-party suppliers stay in business by paying a wee bit more through procurement to help them cover the extra costs. It now strikes me that the tax on Scotland was probably a lot more than 200 million. Yeah, so just to make that point, that obviously, the increase in national insurance has really, really hard north of the border in local government, and hopefully there was a really good question earlier on, is the extra money going to be recurring, or was it extra money, you know, in the last budget, and then, you know, what happens in the budget that's coming? Is there going to be extra money for the Scottish Government and in turn local authorities on a recurring basis, or looking forward, will we have to cover, you know, even more of that national insurance increase? So it'll be, I'm sure that the Joe McLaughlins and what have you of this world I'll be looking very, very closely at the budgets that are coming down the road. Thanks, guys.
Chair, not to again prolong, I don't think there's much I can add to the previous discussion and debate. I think most of the point made there would be for council another time and place when looking at next year's budget to further debate and consider those matters. From a procurement perspective, I'll simply go back to what I said a few minutes ago. A good contract, a good effective contract is one that works for both parties. If it's not working for one party, then they will then either try and get out of it or cut corners, etc., or start doing business with their fingers crossed behind their back. So things like adjustments that Alec clarified there, and the council trying to be a reasonable client and trying to help businesses recognising the very real financial pressures rather than maybe just shroud waving that we always hear anyway in any sector, but recognising that need to make contracts work, and if that requires a bit of investment and an increase in the payment, then sometimes that's the way to go. It isn't just about trying to beat prices down, it's about making sure that what you're paying reflects the cost of the service you're buying. It's as simple as that. And the only other thing I would say, and I was going to leave this to the very end, but just to go back to the point that was made right at the beginning, it's not, and it's maybe just me, I'm just maybe wired to the moon, but I don't regard it as an indulgence at this committee for members to be asking questions. It's your role, and that's what you're here for. And I think from the answers that have been elicited today, I think they're all been good questions. So carry on and don't feel you're taking up anyone's time as members of this committee. That's what the committee's here for, and that's what you're here for. So by no means is it an indulgence. It is an absolute requirement of sitting here. It's not just about officers putting reports in front of you and you nodding them through. It is about making sure, and I'm just going back to Councillor Richardson's point, I'm glad that members are going away with more information and understanding than they maybe come in with in some matters, because that means this committee's working and you're working as part of this committee. So thank you through you, Chair.
Thank you, David. I mean, page 200, it's quite interesting. You have a local company like DM Home Shield, who are, I mean, I thought this procurement was referring to East Ayrshire, and it's really not. We're seeing information there that DM Home Shield are donating money to Troon Dundonald Football Club and sponsorship. They're also donating to East Ayrshire and donations to food banks. They're at the Royal National Lifeboat Institution at Troon. They're doing shirt sponsorship at Mar Rugby Club. So you've got a good local company based in East Ayrshire winning contracts all over the 3 Ayrshires and putting something back to those communities all over the 3 Ayrshire local authorities. So that's information we maybe wouldn't see if we want to come into this committee and seeing these reports. Councillor Canning, you've got the pleasure of the last question or comment, and then we'll finish up.
It's only been slightly flippant, but given that I'm aware of what the M stands for in DM Home Shield, I'm assuming you're not got any interest to declare, Chair?
I have heard that, is it Dougie Maben Home Shield? Is that, I have heard that he's,
just for the record, Chair,
he's a very distant relative that I've never actually met and had a conversation with.
You might now. I think we'll take that as a transparency declaration. I know it's just at the end of the meeting, but we'll take that anyway, just to keep you right. I'd hate anyone else to pick that one up for you.
I don't know the chap that runs the company. I've never met him. Right, where are we? Councillor Canning, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks again, Leslie. But it's not a question, so I'll be very, very quick. Just to in terms of, obviously, we've said that the local procurement has gone down a little bit. We've had explanations, but in terms of trying to drive that increase, just to shout out for Jim Dunn, Paul Taylor, who do a lot of work in that space. And, you know, if you've got any local businesses, put them in touch with them. And also, because I think it can be quite scary sometimes, you know, for some businesses to get involved, and maybe they don't realise they can get involved with some smaller stuff. Supplier development programme, which I'm on the board, follow them. I'll maybe put something out after the meeting, or maybe Leslie could, but I mean, follow them, share their stuff. They've got really good online stuff that people can just learn a little bit about and just, you know, dip their toes in the water. So please use those, or come through me. I can put you in touch with the programme manager if necessary. So just a big shout out for Jim, Paul, and SDP as well. Thanks.
Just on that, Chair, we can do that. The point I would make about that spend, and Leslie clarified in the detail, is that the purpose of that is to let us as a council focus on how we can spend money that we have to spend to procure things that we need, but how we can try and direct that within the rules to support those local businesses. I was actually, every day is a school day because I hadn't really factored in that of the three main, so you heard that there are three companies who are the main beneficiaries who have received or not received the lion's share of that 5.8 million reduction. But to me, the real focus is private and commercial entities. So two of those that have received less money for the council are public bodies that have a local presence but won't be going anywhere and are probably in no danger of going out of business. So it's less important, if you like, in terms of the impact on the energy agency. And we actually think the other one was Ayrshire and Arran Health Board. They won't go into insolvency whether they get out of business or they don't. But it's helpful that the third one, just to give assurance, the third one you heard of, and I'm conscious we're in open session, they get a massive amount of business, and what that reduction for their share reflects is simply when we have to turn up and turn down the tap on the capital programme, particularly the roads capital programme. That simply reflects that we buy an awful lot of tar and other materials and we've bought a bit less, but that business still gets a high volume of spend from the council, and they're also not in danger of going out of business anytime soon from what I see going through PCOS every week. So just to give you that assurance.
That bottom, I wasn't a criticism at all, just that bottom up, trying to get businesses to come to us as well to bid for stuff.
Thank you. Can I just ask Leslie, when it comes to your community benefits, have you got a list of community groups who are looking for, can you help us with community benefit? Or do the company ask, do they come asking for suggestions?
We used to have that process in place, obviously through the community-led action plans. That was our first sort of take it, delivering community benefits, because they had a wish list on there, and we exhausted that probably within the first year and a half. Obviously, when you're going out and putting community benefits into contracts, the capital, we're trying to focus on employability and skills. The sort of softer touch sort of contracts we're putting out for maybe greener communities, grass cutting services and things. We're trying to sort of make that more volunteering, work placements. Is it having the impact that we maybe want it to have? Possibly not. I think the focus, a more focused and targeted approach, similar to the DFIB initiative, the cost of living initiative, I think the kind of initiatives actually have the pack the bigger punch, because we're delivering them at scale, and it is so targeted that we're obviously issuing the comms out to the contracted supply base. They want to be able to deliver something. They don't want to be putting their finger in there saying, well, we're not too sure what it is you're wanting us to deliver here. Is it a work placement? Is it a volunteer day? They want something that's, no, we want you to provide three DFIBs. We want you to provide so many slow cookers. That's why I would welcome another discussion. I'd like us to come up with a pipeline of projects that we can actually target. They can be done consecutively, or we just do them, this is year one, this is year two. But happy to pick up that conversation, because it's been something that the team have been quite keen to deliver on it. And there's a huge amount of community groups, but I think I know other councils have on, it's what they call a community wish list. But you tend to find it's the same community groups that are applying for this time and time again. So it's always the same community groups that are benefiting, and the other community groups that are maybe not as savvy with tech and things, they're always the ones getting left behind. So,
like, going back to tracking as well, it's much easier to track a defibrillator. It's done. Yeah.
I think the essence of this is it works better when we're able to define the ask. Folk are quite happy to dip in and give a little back when they've made profit on a public contract. but they're happier when we can tell them what we're looking for, or what, sorry, our communities are looking for, what we're looking for on behalf of our communities, and we define the ask. That's the experience.
Yeah.
That's what better with the white good, the kitchen stuff, for the cost of living, the utensils, and also it worked with the defibs. So that's what we need to take forward, is matching up what people need and defining that ask, so that folk are almost sitting with a menu, or not a wish list, but a list, and they say, well, for this we'll offer that. So it sits with us. I think if you leave it open-ended, you get much more wider offer, and it's not the same impact, and it's a bit more disparate. So
Got my mic on, forgot. Right, thank you. Elected members, that draws the meeting to the close. The recommendations there are on page 182, paragraph 2, not in the contents of the report. We're all happy with that. Thank you very much for your attendance today, and safe journey home. See you later.